Chapter 127. Hanningshua was puzzled. Soon Mayu gave her an answer. Mayu grabbed her right arm and shook it gently. A bell rang. He chuckled and said, "This bell was given to you by your grandmother, right?" Hanningshua remained silent and glared at him. "I know even if you don't say it. Thank you for delivering the bell to us." Mayu laughed and carefully removed the bell from Hanningshua's wrist. "Have a safe journey." After he kept the bell, he raised his knife and stabbed it toward Hanningshua's heart. Whoosh! Suddenly, a sword light flashed out from the forest and aimed at Mayu's back. Mayu's expression changed and he immediately countered the attack. But the sword light was obviously faster than his counterattack. Ding! His knife barely touched the edge of the sword light. The sword light pierced his left shoulder and blood splattered. Mayu endured the pain and rolled on the ground. Then he quickly got up. "It's you." His expression was ugly. Jiang Xi's face was full of pity. Students who were ranked in the top 5 of the heaven list were not simple. His sword strike was so fast that it only took 0.01 seconds, but Mayu was still able to react. However, although he did not kill Mayu, it was not a big deal. Because Mayu's arm was injured and his strength was weakened. "Let us go and we'll let her go," Mayu said in a low voice. Behind him, Qiao Shang's dagger was pressed against Hanningshua's neck. But Jiang Xi did not hesitate. It was more important to save her. He was about to nod. Accident happened again. Hanningshua, who was lying on the ground, suddenly stood up and punched Qiao Shang, who was close to her. Bang! Crack crack. There was a series of bone cracking sounds. Qiao Shang, who had just broken through to B class, had a huge dent in his chest. He flew out for nearly 100 meters and landed on the ground. He was already out of breath and could not be saved. Hanningshua stood up and panted. She was an expert in fist arts. As an A-class martial artist, her strength was vividly displayed at this moment. This scene gave Jiang Xi and Mayu a shock. When did Hanningshua recover her combat strength? B-class Fey medicine. Mayu's expression became extremely ugly. He saw a syringe of medicine at the place where Hanningshua had collapsed. Qiao Shang and Jiang and Mayu when they were not paying attention. Hanningshua must have used the B-class medicine. The spirit chi energy contained in B-rank Fey potions was no longer effective for A-rank martial artists like them. However, it had a healing effect on the body. But the price was too high. One syringe cost 28.8 billion new moon dollars. Normal people could not afford it. Therefore, when martial artists fought, almost no one would think of this. Jiang Xi was also surprised, but he reacted quickly. He smiled and looked at Mayu. "Now you have no bargaining chips." Mayu turned and ran. He turned into a blurry shadow and quickly escaped. "Want to run?" Jiang Xi exerted force on his feet, leaving a huge hole in the ground. His speed immediately increased, and every step covered a distance of 2 to 3 kilometers. Mayu was indeed an A-class martial artist, but he had just broken through and had not fully grasped the speed of an A-class martial artist. There was no way to escape. The two figures instantly disappeared. Hanningshua was left behind. Her face was pale, and it was obvious that she had not fully recovered. "Yingxua, save me!" A weak cry for help came from the side. Qin Feng was still struggling. Qiao Shang's sneak attack was fatal. However, he was already an A-class martial artist and had a strong vitality. There was still a chance to save him. Hanningshua's face was as cold as ice. She walked in front of Qin Feng and looked at him with disdain. "It's my fault. Yingxua, please forgive me." Qin Feng's expression was anxious. "Goodbye." Hanningshua was very decisive. She took Qin Feng's long blade and lightly slashed Qin Feng's throat. After doing all this, she turned and chased after Jiang Xi. She did not even look at Qin Feng. A light breeze blew past and blood quietly flowed. It told those who came later that a battle had happened here. Qin Feng, who only had a trace of consciousness left, only had confusion and unwillingness in his eyes. He had just become an A-class martial artist and wanted to prove himself. However, he did not expect that his life would end like this. What made him even more unwilling was that he found out that Jiang Xi was so powerful. Even Mayu was not Jiang Xi's opponent. At the same time, Jiang Xi was chasing after Mayu. He had already chased after him for more than 20 kilometers. Since he had the intention to kill, then he might as well kill. In addition, when he was in the training camp, he had noticed that Ma Yu and Xiao Shang had ulterior motives. They had been hiding something from him. In addition, Ma Yu and Xiao Shang had mysteriously killed Qin Feng. He felt that these two people were not simple. Today was the day to deal with this threat. You can't escape. Jiang Xi took another step forward and crossed a distance of 2 to 3 kilometers. He was only 1 to 200 meters away from Ma Yu. In the next moment, he would be able to stop Ma Yu. Damn it, why isn't Feng Xian here yet? Ma Yu was extremely anxious. Before entering the Jade Lake secret territory, a director of the Liberal Alliance had contacted him and asked him to be a spy in the secret territory. His main mission was to seize the bell in Han Ningshua's hand and find Jiang Xi's traces at the same time. Therefore, when Jiang Xi appeared in front of them, he sent a distress signal to the director. Through this mission, he had basically confirmed that the director was Feng Xian. Behind him, Jiang Xi caught up. Kill! Jiang Xi's eyes shone with a cold light. With a flash of his sword, he stabbed toward Ma Yu's back. Clang! Ma Yu turned around and blocked the sword with his saber. However, at the same time he was pushed back dozens of meters by the power of the sword. Jiang Xi, don't kill me. I can tell you a secret. Ma Yu said loudly. What secret? Promise not to kill me first. Okay. Ma Yu breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said. Feng Xian thinks you're the murderer of his son. This time he also came to the Jade Lake secret territory. Jiang Xi's expression became slightly more serious. He nodded and said, thank you. No need, puff. A head flew into the sky. The sword was as fast as lightning. Taking advantage of Ma Yu's relaxed state, it swept past his neck. Sorry, my sword didn't listen to me. Jiang Xi sheathed his sword. He didn't leave immediately. Instead, he bent down and rummaged through Ma Yu's backpack. He was looking for the bell that Ma Yu had taken from Han Ningxue. That thing seemed to be very important. While rummaging through the backpack, he also muttered to himself. Feng Xian actually came. This was something he didn't expect. He thought that Feng Xian would take advantage of his year-end holiday to attack him. He didn't expect him to come at this time. It seemed that Feng Xian really hated him to the core. I have to be more careful in the next few days. Jiang Xi raised his vigilance. With his current strength, he didn't have much confidence in defeating Feng Xian. Found it. Jiang Xi saw the bell in Ma Yu's backpack and was about to reach out to grab it. This moment suddenly. Boom boom boom. Sonic booms sounded in the distance. Jiang Xi felt a stabbing pain in the back of his heart. His sharp spiritual sense told him that it was dangerous. Chapter 128. Without hesitation, Jiang Xi threw himself to the ground. Whoosh! A sharp blade landed on the trunk of a large tree in front of him. Crack! The thick tree trunk was split into two. Who's there? Jiang Xi was shocked. His figure flashed, and he reappeared 200 to 300 meters away. He saw a thin middle-aged man suddenly appear where he was just standing. Feng Xian. Jiang Xi's eyes narrowed slightly. Ever since Feng Xian had issued that huge bounty, he had specifically searched for information about Feng Xian and knew what he looked like. He really came at the drop of a hat. Feng Xian's face was gloomy, and his killing intent was obvious. He looked like he wanted nothing more than to skin Jiang Xi alive. The two of them did not exchange any words. Their actions and expressions reflected everything. Run! Jiang Xi did not try to be brave. He turned around and ran at top speed. In an instant, he disappeared into the forest. Strangely, Feng Xian did not immediately chase after him. He first bent down and did the same action as Jiang Xi. He rummaged in Ma Yu's backpack for a while and found the bell that Jiang Xi did not have time to take. You killed my son. You can't escape. Feng Xian moved his feet and chased after Jiang Xi. Every step was 3,000 to 4,000 meters. He was actually faster than Jiang Xi by 3 minutes. Jiang Xi sprinted through the forest. In just 10 seconds he had covered 20 to 30 kilometers. His speed was already very fast, but his expression was very solemn. Too sudden. Feng Xian came too quickly. It was beyond his expectations. In the martial arts world of Zhanghai Prefecture, and even the martial arts world of Dexia, Feng Xian's presence was very low, and he was relatively mysterious. Everyone only knew that Feng Xian was an A-class martial artist, but did not know which martial artist faction he belonged to. Jiang Xi only learned that Feng Xian was one of the 13 most powerful directors of the Liberal Alliance after he arrived at the heaven-level training camp. To be able to sit in this position, his strength was naturally not weak. In order to find out more about Feng Xian, Jiang Xi had asked his teacher Yu Lin about Feng Xian. Yu Lin's evaluation was that he was an expert between the second and third ranks of the martial arts world. Jiang Xi also had some understanding of A-class martial artists. The strength of an A-class warrior was further divided into 4 tiers. The first group was naturally Xian Tian Li Bai Bai and the others. Their strength had surpassed the level of martial artists. The second group, such as the 4 elders of Genten Budokan, were at this level. They were top-notch A-class martial artists and were only a step away from surpassing A-class. The third group, such as the 12 deacons of Genten Budokan and the presidents of the martial arts associations of the prefectures of Daxia, had combat strength close to top-notch A-class. Although they could enter the A-class realm at any time, their actual combat strength was 1 level lower than top-notch A-class. The fourth group were ordinary A-class martial artists. People at this level included the instructors of the heaven-level training camp and the masters of the Genten Budokan branches. Now there should be another fifth group, which included A-class martial artists like Hanning Xue and Qin Feng, who had advanced with the help of external forces, as well as geniuses who were not A-class martial artists but barely possessed A-class combat strength. Jiang Xi knew that his strength should be slightly stronger than the fourth group, but slightly weaker than the third group. Based on this calculation, he was a whole level lower than Feng Xian, perhaps even more. This was because this did not take into account whether Feng Xian had made a breakthrough during the Spirit Qi revival. Had he reached top-notch A-class? Therefore, when he had learned from Mayu that Feng Xian had also come to the Jade Lake secret realm, he had planned to escape. Jiang Xi's plan was to first hide from this pursuit, and then develop in a low-key manner for 2 or 3 months. When he had truly become an A-class martial artist and his strength had surpassed Feng Xian, he would then make a fuss about these matters. However, he had not expected that Feng Xian would come as he wished and not give him a chance to develop at all. This is going to be troublesome. Jiang Xi frowned. Whoosh whoosh, under the night sky. A whistling sound came from the forest behind him. Feng Xian had caught up. He's faster than me. Jiang Xi's heart skipped a beat. Speed was his forte, but at this time he had lost his advantage in speed. There was no way he could fight. With this speed, he must have reached top-notch A-class. What should I do? Am I going to have a breakthrough again? Jiang Xi's mind raced. This time the situation was somewhat different. If he had a breakthrough and failed to kill Feng Xian, then his secret would be exposed to Feng Xian. I can't escape even if I don't use it. Jiang Xi knew that he had no other choice. While he was thinking, his footsteps did not stop. Using the wind shadow steps to the extreme, his speed became faster and faster. His whole body became even more blurry, leaving behind afterimages in the night sky. Under the illumination of the twin moons, the mountains appeared rather tranquil. Occasionally, the roars of the undead creatures could be heard. Boom! Suddenly, in the depths of the mountains, clusters of dark clouds gathered. Strong winds blew, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The dark clouds covered the twin moons, and the Jasper Lake secret realm became dusky. Only the lightning in the distance released some light, cutting across the night sky time and time again. There. Jiang Xi had a feeling that there was something in the depths of the mountains that was attracting him. There was a chance for change there. As if he was confirming something, his footwork suddenly became even more mysterious, and his speed increased a little. Did I have a breakthrough in the wind shadow steps? Jiang Xi was slightly stunned. He looked at the experience panel. Wind shadow steps, combined 400, 004, 0000. There was no breakthrough. That's not right. It seems that the environment has changed, and it's more suitable for the wind shadow steps. The wind around him became stronger, fitting the essence of the wind shadow steps. It was extremely fast and erratic. Jiang Xi was pleasantly surprised and puzzled. Soon he crossed the mountains. About 10 kilometers behind him, Feng Xian's face became more and more gloomy. His speed increased. Just now he could still see Jiang Xi's tracks, And he was getting closer and closer to Jiang Xi now. The distance between him and Jiang Xi was slowly increasing. Immediately after, he also saw the abnormality in the depths of the mountains. Dense lightning and dark clouds. What a strange scene! Is he running in that direction? Feng Xian found another trace of Jiang Xi. He did not think too much about it. His attention was completely attracted by Jiang Xi's hatred. His footsteps moved, and he quickly chased after him. A minute later, Jiang Xi crossed another mountain and finally saw the situation in the distance. He saw that between the mountains and under the dark clouds, there was a huge mountain that occupied an extremely large area. It towered into the clouds as if it was going to pierce the sky. The upper half of the mountain was shrouded in fog, and the situation inside could not be seen clearly. Only the lower half could be seen. The lightning that looked like knives and swords kept falling, as if it was going to split the mountain in half. This mythical scene shocked Jiang Xi. Moreover, he realized that as he approached the mountain, the feeling in his heart became clearer, and his spirit sense became sharper. What exactly is on the mountain? Jiang Xi decided to give it a try. If this continued, he would definitely be caught by Feng Xian in the end. In just a moment, he arrived in front of the mountain of unknown height. Standing at the foot of the mountain seemed to be emitting a powerful spiritual pressure, making people involuntarily feel awe. Jiang Xi's gaze was attracted by a huge stone tablet at the foot of the mountain. On it were written ancient words that clearly did not belong to this era. But the strange thing was that he could understand the words at a glance. It was as if a message was conveyed through his spiritual consciousness. Tongtian Mountain. What a domineering name. However, these 3 words reminded Jiang Xi of his home in Paksun Province, Tongtian District. The martial artist districts of the various Zhenten Budokan prefectural martial arts hall branches all had this name. It was obvious that the higher-ups of Zhenten Budokan had borrowed the 2 words Tongtian. Chapter 129. The upper half of the towering sky-span mountain was shrouded in thick fog. In the sky there were patches of dark clouds. Dense lightning fell continuously, making this huge mountain peak look extremely dangerous. If one were to rashly climb the mountain, they would easily be struck by lightning. Boom, boom, boom. In the forest behind him, there was a faint sound of sonic booms. It was Feng Xian approaching. These lightning bolts seem dense, but there are gaps. As long as I'm careful and don't get hit, there won't be a problem. Jiang Xi did not hesitate. Relying on his intuition, he climbed the mountain against the lightning. Soon, when he stepped onto the sky-span mountain, a shocking scene appeared. Those lightning bolts seemed to be unable to hit him. A few of them just happened to land a meter away from him. If it was an exception, it would be fine. But when Jiang Xi walked for more than 1,000 meters, he turned around. He turned around to take a look. The path he had just taken was completely covered by lightning. Although he was puzzled, the current situation was advantageous to him. These lightning bolts helped him hide his tracks. After carefully walking another 2,000 to 3,000 meters, the situation was still the same. Jiang Xi was slightly relieved. His climbing speed increased slightly. A moment later, he arrived at the mountainside. This seemed to be a boundary point of the Skyspan Mountain. There was no lightning on the upper half of the Skyspan Mountain, only fog. Standing here and looking down the mountain, one could clearly see that the lightning bolts seemed to never stop pouring down, covering the lower half of the mountain. I wonder if Feng Xian has caught up? I wish him good luck. Jiang Xi continued climbing and entered the fog. The fog was pervasive and visibility was very low. After reaching this position, he realized that the inexplicable attraction was getting stronger and stronger, especially when he used Wind Shadow Step with all his might. At the top of the mountain, Jiang Xi followed his intuition and kept moving forward. After walking for about 10 kilometers, they finally came to a stop. Suddenly, he heard the sound of water ripples. It was quiet and serene, making one calm down unconsciously. There's a spring on the mountain? Jiang Xi's heart skipped a beat after climbing for more than 100 steps. The terrain suddenly opened up. He had reached the top of the mountain. Could this be the Jade Lake? Jiang Xi's eyes widened. There was an endless lake in front of them. The surface of the lake rippled as wisps of mist rose and filled the air. So the fog is coming from here. Jiang Xi came to a realization and looked around. He could see that there were many small peaks by the lake. In the distance, a mountain peak about 100 meters high caught his attention. That was where the inexplicable attraction came from. Jiang Xi's figure flashed and arrived in front of the peak. This is... At this time, Fengxian followed Jiang Xi's trail and arrived in front of Mount Tongtian. He was also stunned by this mythical scene. He looked at it for a while. Sky-piercing mountain. The Jade Lake secret realm actually has such a magical place. It seems like the rumors back then were true. Xian Tian, Li Baibai, and the others obtained a fortuitous encounter on a mountain in the Jade Lake secret realm and rose to prominence. Now that I've also found this mountain, it seems like I have the same opportunity. Fengxian's eyes flickered. He was very tempted. He had just broken through some time ago, and he was only a step away from the realm of A-class and above. Once he obtained an opportunity, he could break through again and become a first-tier elite. However, the lightning that kept falling made Fengxian hesitate. It'll be troublesome if I get hit by a few of such dense lightning bolts. However, since that kid is willing to brave the lightning and rush up, I'm not afraid. Then, he turned into a blurry shadow and instantly stepped on the path of climbing the mountain. However, he had only taken a few steps. Boom! A bolt of lightning as thick as a thumb landed on his head, causing his body to freeze. What a powerful force! It's not an ordinary lightning bolt. Fengxian was not too concerned. Being hit by a few lightning bolts occasionally was within his acceptable range. He was very confident that with the strength of a top-tier A-class martial artist, he could withstand the power of these lightning bolts. He took a few more steps. Boom! Another bolt of lightning struck his head. His body froze, and this time his body was clearly a little numb. It's okay. I can still boom. Before he could finish his sentence, another bolt of lightning struck. Fengxian's face was a little black. Some of it was left behind by the lightning, but some of it was really black. Even I'm affected by such powerful lightning bolts. Although that kid's combat power is strong, he's only a B-class. His body is definitely not as strong as mine. Maybe he's already been struck to death by such dense lightning bolts. Fengxian thought about it from a different perspective and felt much better. Boom! Boom! Next, Fengxian was struck by lightning for almost every 3 steps he took. I can only use my speed to rush over. Fengxian sprinted up the mountain. Then he realized that the faster he was, the more frequent the lightning bolts were. Finally, he reached the halfway point of the mountain, the boundary between the fog and the lightning. There was lightning at the bottom of the mountain and fog at the top. Fengxian heaved a sigh of relief. Wisps of green smoke rose from his explosive hairstyle. If it wasn't for the strong body of an A-class martial artist, he might have already turned into charcoal. He looked at the lightning bolts that kept falling from the sky and confirmed his speculation. I haven't seen any trace of that kid along the way. He must have been buried by the lightning. Then, Fengxian made some adjustments and recovered some strength. Looking at the fog on the mountain, he said to himself excitedly, "Now, let's start looking for my opportunity." His figure quickly disappeared into the fog on the upper half of Skyspan Mountain. Along the way, he didn't encounter any danger and smoothly reached the top of the mountain. This is the Jade Lake? When Fengxian saw the lake at the top of the mountain, he was stunned. But then he was attracted by the things beside the lake. 100-year spirit item. No, there's also a 1,000-year spirit item. Fengxian was ecstatic. In the hazy fog in the distance, in an open space that looked like a vegetable garden, there were 5 plants that emitted a spiritual aura swaying in the wind. 3 of them were about a meter tall and were 100-year spirit items. They all bore fruits and looked very tempting. The other 2 were more than 2 meters tall and were 1,000-year spirit items. They also bore fruits and emitted a stronger spiritual aura. The distance between each spirit item was about 400 to 500 meters. The chances of an A-class martial artist breaking through after consuming a 100-year spirit item are very small. But if it's a 1,000-year spirit item, I can definitely break through to the A-class realm. This is my opportunity. Fengxian's heart thumped. Excited. However, he didn't act rashly. His many years of martial arts experience told him that wherever there were treasures, there would definitely be danger. The simplest way. He picked up a stone from the lake and threw it behind one of the 100-year spirit items. Whoosh! The stone was very fast and disappeared into the fog. Roar! A huge figure roared and pounced out of the fog. Its sparkling white bones indicated its identity. It was an undead creature. Chapter 130. Jiang Xi stood in front of the 100-meter-high peak, his face full of surprise. This is... Lingwan Road was originally here? At this time, from where he stood, he could see that one side of the peak seemed to have been cut 3 times with a knife, and a large piece had been neatly dug out. After careful comparison, the marks that had been dug out just happened to match the Lingwan Road of the training camp. Looking to the side, he saw that there was a pit below. Looking at the shape, it also matched the stone block known as Wondrous Rock Mountain. Jiang Xi roughly understood that Lingwan Road and Wondrous Rock Mountain were indeed carried back by Xiantian from here. But why does this place have a mysterious attraction to me? Is it because I have cultivated in Lingwan Road and Wondrous Rock Mountain? Jiang Xi was very puzzled, but after thinking about it he shook his head. The trainees of the Heaven-level training camp had all cultivated in Lingwan Road and Wondrous Rock Mountain. If this was the reason, then it couldn't be just him that was attracted. In order to figure out the doubts in his heart, he circled the peak a few times. In the end he didn't find anything. But that attraction had always been there. Could it be up there? Jiang Xi looked up at the sky, but unfortunately, there were only dark clouds and fog pervading between heaven and earth. There are the auras of other martial artists. Suddenly, he sensed 2 powerful auras coming from the other side of the lake. One of them is Feng Xian's aura. But who is the other one? Jiang Xi's heart skipped a beat. He memorized the location of the peak, then circled around the lake, quietly heading in the direction of the aura. He didn't rashly cross the seemingly endless lake directly. It was better to be cautious. Who knew if there was something terrible in the water? The thick fog made a good camouflage for him, so he didn't have to worry about being discovered. After a while, Jiang Xi approached his destination. He hid in a depression between several peaks, making it difficult to be discovered. Then he looked into the distance. Feng Xian and an undead ape. What a strong aura. Jiang Xi was a little surprised at the same time. He was a little puzzled. He noticed that Feng Xian's hairstyle had turned into an afro, and there were many burn marks on his combat uniform. Feng Xian has fought with others before? Why are you in such a sorry state? Before he could think about it carefully, his eyes lit up. It's actually a spiritual object. He saw the 5 phase growing in the open space. Although he was tempted, Jiang Xi did not act rashly. Firstly, he was no match for Feng Xian. Secondly, he was worried that there were other dangers hidden in this place. This place was filled with a strange and mysterious atmosphere, and he couldn't see through it. Let's wait and see. They're about to fight. On the other side, Feng Xian smashed a skeleton monster with a stone. This aura is only at the 3rd tier of A class. Feng Xian smiled slightly. He had made a breakthrough during the Spirit Qi awakening some time ago, and his strength was now at the 2nd tier of A class, the peak of A class combat power. It seems that these 5 phase are fated to be with me, Feng Xian. He was in a good mood now. The murderer of his son had most likely died under the lightning. Now, he had encountered such an opportunity. Feng Xian will also stand at the top of the 1st tier of martial arts. He was full of confidence. After saying that, he directly rushed toward the huge A-class skeleton ape. He slashed out with his saber, and a huge saber shadow shot out. Boom! The skeleton ape waved its huge bony palm and blocked the attack, and it retreated dozens of steps. Whether you're a living thing or not, you can't escape the law of the jungle. Feng Xian laughed loudly and attacked again with his saber. Roar! The skeleton ape, which was close to 10 meters tall, suddenly pounded its chest angrily and roared at the sky. Roar! 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 In an instant, deep within the thick fog, 4 angry roars responded to it. Boom! 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 4 huge skeletal figures broke through the thick fog and arrived in front of the phase. They were all undead creatures guarding the phase. Feng Xian held his breath. He was shocked. This was because he realized that 2 of the 4 undead creatures that had just appeared were also skeleton apes, and their strength was at the 3rd tier of A class. What surprised him was that the remaining 2 skeletons with long tails were actually transformed from crypt flame dragons. They had huge bodies of white bones and long tails that were as sharp as blades. These 2 were at the 2nd tier of A class, and their auras were slightly stronger than his. Roar! The 5 undead creatures roared at Feng Xian in unison and pounced toward him. Damn it! Feng Xian cursed and turned to leave. Boom! However, the 2 long-tailed skeletons, which had the strength of a 2nd-tier A-class warrior, were obviously much faster. Their sparkling white bone tails whistled as they swept towards Feng Xian. Clang! Feng Xian blocked one of them. Boom! The other landed heavily on Feng Xian's body. Like a cannonball, he was sent flying and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He landed heavily on a rock beside the lake and almost fell into the lake. About 3,000 meters away, Jiang Xi watched quietly from a depression on a mountain peak. He could not understand the battle in the distance. How strange. The 5 undead creatures did not pursue and attack. They only repelled Feng Xian and did not continue attacking. If they had chased after him just now, Feng Xian would not have had a chance to survive. Feng Xian also noticed this. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, picked up a large rock, and threw it heavily at one of the skeletons. Shio! The rock was like a cannonball. Roar! The A-class skeletons dodged the rock and roared at Feng Xian. However, they did not charge forward. Shio! 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 Feng Xian threw a few more rocks. After a few probing, the 5 undead creatures seemed to be restricted and could not fight back. They can't leave that open space that looks like a vegetable garden. Jiang Xi's eyes flashed as he saw the pattern. From his position, he could see that the 5 undead creatures were standing in an arc. In the face of Feng Xian's constant provocation, they only roared and did not take another step forward. Formation? This word suddenly appeared in Jiang Xi's mind. It was very possible. The things he was in contact with now were getting closer and closer to myths. With this thought, he continued to observe the situation in the distance. At this time, Feng Xian also confirmed this pattern. The feeling of having a treasure mountain in front of him, but not knowing where to start made him very uncomfortable. It was almost impossible to steal the spiritual item under the protection of these 5 undead creatures. I have to find help. Zhongsu and Ta Shi should be near Shushan Prefecture at this time. They will be here in an hour at most. I can ask them to come over and help. Feng Xian frowned and thought for a while before making this decision. These 2 people had been through life and death situations with him, so they were trustworthy people. Since he couldn't monopolize such a fortuitous opportunity, he had to bring in someone he trusted. Immediately, he used his tactical communications watch to send a message to Zhongsu and Ta Shi, explaining the situation. You called for help? Jiang Xi noticed Feng Xian's actions. He smiled slightly and made a decision in his heart. Chapter 131. The moonlight grew brighter and brighter. The primeval forest around Death Valley was filled with the roars of beasts from time to time. The invisible barrier was like an inverted bowl that completely covered Death Valley. Inside, clouds and mist flowed slowly. It looked very mysterious. Xiantian and White Cloud stood on a tall mountain nearby and looked at Death Valley. Master, someone else has entered. One of them is the 2nd director of the Liberal Alliance from the Shadow Kingdom. The other 2 are Feng Xian's friends. White Cloud suddenly reminded him. His tactical communications watch had just received a message. Oh, someone finally came. Xiantian smiled and didn't mind. It seems that the Spirit Qi revival has made many people bold. They actually dare to ignore the declaration of our Genten Budokan. Master, let me do it. White Cloud said seriously. Many years ago, when the Jade Lake secret realm was first discovered, the Genten Budokan had announced to the public that the Jade Lake secret realm belonged to the Genten Budokan of the Daxia Kingdom. Any martial artists who belonged to other countries were prohibited from entering. Since the announcement, no one dared to take the risk to enter the Jade Lake secret realm. Now, a few heavyweight martial artists from the Liberal Alliance had actually entered openly. Although the Liberal Alliance wasn't a national force, the nature of the organization meant that they weren't martial artists of the Daxia Kingdom. This time, Feng Xian and the others had entered. It was obvious that they didn't care about the Genten Budokan. White Cloud was angry and wanted to teach them a lesson. Xiantian chuckled and said, "It's fine. Just fishing. Why are you in such a hurry? Only a few came. It's not enough. The more the better." White Cloud. When he heard his master say that it was fine, his intuition told him that there was an 80% chance that something was wrong. On the peak of Mount Tongtian, the clear lake was like a mirror with slight ripples. Jiang Xi hid in the depressions of the peaks. He was very patient and motionless. The view here was good, and he could see the surrounding environment clearly. In particular, he could see the 5 spirit plants swaying in the wind. Each of them had a fruit that emitted a faint spirit aura. It was very tempting. Jiang Xi was naturally very tempted. However, one had to know one's own limits. He didn't have the strength to fight for it now. Even Feng Xian, whose strength was at the 2nd tier of A rank, could only flee pathetically when faced with those undead creatures. If he went, he wouldn't end up any better. Jiang Xi calmed down and thought about it carefully. Some doubts arose in his heart. Logically speaking, 3 of the 5 phase were 100-year phase, while the other 2 were 1,000-year phase. How many experts could these phase nurture? It was impossible for the higher-ups of Genten Budokan not to notice such a high value. Why wasn't there anyone guarding this place? But now it was discovered by someone else. Jiang Xi could clearly see that Feng Xian hadn't gone anywhere. He was sitting cross-legged on a rock by the lake. He wasn't cultivating. Instead, he was staring at the 5 phase in the open space not far away. The 5 undead creatures only roared at Feng Xian to declare their territorial sovereignty. After that, they ignored Feng Xian. Instead, they kept wandering around the phase, guarding against anyone who came to snatch them. The higher-ups of Genten Budokan shouldn't be so stupid, right? Jiang Xi thought to himself. Perhaps the higher-ups had other considerations. He could only think this way to show some respect to the higher-ups. Another 40 minutes or so passed. 3 figures rushed over from the foot of the mountain. When they stood still, Jiang Xi realized that 2 of them were people he had seen before. They were Zongsu and Tashi. Back in Ruin No. 09, he had taken advantage of the 2 of them. While they were fighting with the 2-headed demon wolf, he had taken away the unripe dragon spirit fruit. Their appearances hadn't changed much. Zongsu still looked like a middle-aged man. He held a long staff in his hand. He had thick eyebrows and thin eyes. His gaze was very intimidating. Tashi, on the other hand, was the young man who used a sword. His face was cold and grim. Putting these 2 aside, Jiang Xi focused on the other middle-aged white man. He was wearing a white warrior suit. His body was thin, and his aura was very fierce. It feels like he's stronger than Elder Tang. He's definitely a 2nd-tier A-rank powerhouse. Jiang Xi was shocked and slowed his breathing. Through observation, he could see that Feng Xian didn't seem to be happy with the white man's arrival. His face was a little gloomy. Feng Xian first exchanged glances with Zongsu and Tashi. The 2 of them shook their heads, hiding their helplessness. "Sam, why are you here?" Feng Xian asked in a deep voice. The white man, Sam, had his eyes locked on the 5 phase from the beginning. His eyes were filled with greed. Even when he heard Feng Xian's question, his eyes didn't leave the 5 phase. He spoke awkwardly in Mandarin and answered with a smile. "When Zongsu and the others went to apply for the Liberal Alliance's transport plane, I happened to be at the Liberal Alliance's base in Shushan Prefecture. When I heard that they were coming to this plateau, I knew that you must be in trouble. Feng Xian, you can't do this. Our Liberal Alliance's motto is to help each other. If you're in trouble, you have to inform me, right? You're the backbone of our Liberal Alliance. If something happens to you, we'll all be sad." Feng Xian's face was full of smiles, but he was cursing in his heart. "Shameless son of a bitch. If you could take your eyes off the 5 phase when you speak, I might believe you a little more." Of course, he could only mutter these words in his heart because Sam was stronger than him. Among the 13 directors of the Liberal Alliance, other than the mysterious founder who never showed his face, Sam was the strongest. Before the 3rd awakening of Qi, Sam, who was known as the White-Clothed Director, was already a top-notch A-rank martial artist and was in the 2nd tier of A-rank. Now what made Feng Xian apprehensive was that Sam's body was faintly emitting a spiritual pressure. This was a sign that he was about to break through to the A-rank realm. Sam had become even stronger. Feng Xian didn't dare to be careless. With their current strength, the three of them together might not be able to defeat Sam. This was a wolf. The 5 skeletons in front of us look so evil. Feng Xian, in order to prove our friendship, let me represent God and destroy these evil existences. Sam made a gesture. Feng Xian, Zongsu, and Tashi all cursed in their hearts. They had never seen such a shameless person. Don't worry, Sam. Just the 2 long-tailed skeletons transformed from the crypt flame dragons have the strength of the 2nd tier of A rank. With the addition of the other 3, it will be very difficult for us to deal with them. I think it's better to plan first before making a move. Feng Xian squeezed out a smile on his face. Oh, you're right. You're still the most comprehensive one. Sam gave a thumbs up, looking as if he had just realized something. Feng Xian and the other 2 heaved a sigh of relief and were about to speak. Sam pretended to be deep in thought and said, "How about this? There's an old saying in the Great Xia country. It's a blessing to suffer losses. Let me suffer some losses and deal with the 2 powerful and evil long-tailed skeletons. You guys deal with the other 3 skeletons that look like gorillas. However, according to the theory that effort is proportional to the reward, I'll reluctantly. Well, reluctantly. This word should be correct. I'll reluctantly take the 2,000-year-old spirit items as spoils of war. As for the other 300-year-old spirit items, the 3 of you can divide them equally. What do you think of my plan?" Sam grinned, and a frightening spiritual pressure emanated from his body. Feng Xian and the other 2 looked at each other. Their expressions didn't look too good, but facing Sam's undisguised threat, they could only nod. The law of the jungle was universal everywhere. Chapter 132. From his position, Jiang Xi could hear the conversation between Feng Xian and the others. However, the content of the conversation between Feng Xian and the Caucasian man made Jiang Xi suspicious. From the looks of it, the Caucasian man named Sam is not with Feng Xian. This is going to be a good show. He loved this kind of dog-eat-dog scene the most. In the distance, Feng Xian and the others began to attack after they had reached an agreement. Sam leaped high and a powerful aura erupted. The broadsword in his hand directly dispersed the surrounding fog, and the vision became clearer. Whoosh! One could clearly see that the giant sword had landed heavily on a long-tailed skeleton that was transformed from a crypt flame dragon. Crack! A few white bones shattered. Roar! The long-tailed skeleton let out an earth-shattering roar, and its long tail swept toward Sam like a blade. Ha! Sam laughed loudly without any fear. He held the broadsword and slashed hundreds of times in an instant. Clang! 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 An intense battle. Another long-tailed skeleton also roared and pounced toward Sam from behind. As if he had eyes on the back of his head, Sam turned his body and waved his sword to block the attack from behind. This is a spirit nurture technique, Zongsu said in horror. He has a spiritual sense that can detect the situation around him. Tashi also exclaimed. It's still not enough. His spiritual sense has not been fully condensed. Otherwise, these 5 undead creatures together would not be enough for him to kill. Feng Xian shook his head. At the same time, he cursed in his heart. If it were not for this shameless bastard, he could have gotten all 5 spirit items together with Zongsu and Tashi. With that, he could have become a powerhouse that surpassed Class A. Damn it! Feng Xian was driven mad. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "Let's attack too." As he spoke, he rushed toward one of the ape clan skeletons. 100-year spirit item could also help him break through. It was better than nothing. Zongsu and Tashi also attacked one of the ape clan skeletons each. Both of them had the strength of a 3rd-tier Class A, which was similar to the ape clan skeletons. Although they could not crush them, it was still quite easy to deal with them in comparison. Feng Xian seemed very relaxed. He had the strength of a 2nd-tier A-class warrior, and he could completely suppress that ape skeleton. Every slash accurately landed on the huge skeletal body, shattering the translucent white bones one after another. Boom! Boom! On this side of the lake, the battle was getting more and more intense. The 4 of them purposely avoided the 5 spirit items to avoid damaging the ripened fruits. The battle was in a stalemate. At present, it seemed that Feng Xian had the absolute advantage. Although Sam was strong, He had to face 2 second-stage A-class undead creatures at the same time. For the time being, he was unable to gain the upper hand. Jiang Xi was still hiding in the depression, motionless. While watching the battle in the distance, he was also thinking about what he had just heard. Spirit nurturing stage. Is this the realm of A-class and above? Condensing spiritual awareness. Could it be that the spiritual awareness is about to change? Jiang Xi thought for a while and put his doubts to the bottom of his heart. He was going to explore it in detail after this survival training was over. For now, it was better to focus on the battle in the distance. Although the open space was similar to a vegetable garden, it was actually very large. The 5 spirit items were separated by 400 to 500 meters. In other words, Feng Xian and the others were very far apart. They would not be able to end this battle for the spirit items in a short time. Maybe there's a chance to get a spirit item? Jiang Xi had a flash of inspiration, and his eyes lit up. There's still time. I can use the A-class spirit item medicine first and see if it can raise me to A-class. If it succeeds, my strength will improve and I will have a greater chance. He did as he said. Jiang Xi hid in the depression of the mountain peak, took out the A-class spirit item medicine syringe, and used it immediately. After the pure white spirit item medicine entered his body, it instantly turned into an extremely impactful spirit energy that spread to every part of his body. Even with the strength of a B-class warrior's body, he still felt a tearing pain all over his body from the inside out. His bones, muscles, blood vessels, and even his skin felt like they were about to split open. It's not time yet. Jiang Xi endured the pain. He wanted to use this impact to break through the rank bottleneck. In just 3 seconds, under the impact of the enormous spirit energy, the bottleneck from B-class to A-class loosened. It was as if a layer of membrane had been pierced and was full of cracks. It's done. Jiang Xi was pleasantly surprised. Increased by 1,000 experience points. In the next moment, the spirit energy that was wreaking havoc in his body rapidly decreased. At the same time, his physical fitness had finally achieved a breakthrough. From B-class to A-class, he had completed a qualitative upgrade. His strength, speed, agility, and various sensory abilities had undergone earth-shattering changes. The enhancement of his physical fitness also made him feel that the spirit energy in his body was not as strong, and the tearing pain was greatly reduced. An A-class warrior's body could withstand the impact of the A-class spirit item medicine. However, he still had to digest the spirit energy. Otherwise, it would be a waste. Increased by 1,000 experience points. Increased by 1,000 experience points. After repeating this 8 times, the spirit energy from the A-class spirit item medicine was almost exhausted. The spirit energy had allowed him to increase by a total of 9,000 experience points. Jiang Xi's strength had also reached a new height. He opened the experience panel and checked. Level Pulse Opening Realm A 900-025900. Cultivation Technique. 9 Elements Heart Sutra Martial Technique. 9 Elements Sword Art. Combine 300-003-0000. Wine Shadow Step. Combine 400-004-0000. Force Exertion. 10 Experience Points. 136049. Very strong. For once, Jiang Xi was confident. Hiding in the dark, he gently clenched his fist. There was a powerful force flowing between his fingers. Before reaching A-class, I already had the combat power of a peak A-class warrior, and was slightly stronger than a 3rd-tier A-class warrior. Now my combat power has increased by a whole level, and should have surpassed the 2nd-tier A-class warrior. As for the 1st-tier A-class warrior, Jiang Xi did not dare to think about it. That was a strength that surpassed A-class. Perhaps it could no longer be described as an A-class warrior. Spirit Nurturing Realm. This was what he had heard from Feng Xian and the others. Just like this, after a few more minutes and seconds, Jiang Xi confirmed that the changes in his body had completely calmed down. Only then did he turn his gaze back to the open space that looked like a vegetable garden. Although it sounded long, the entire process only took 1 minute. At the same time, Feng Xian and the others were still fighting fiercely with the 5 undead creatures. The battle was still in a stalemate. And I can't be greedy. I'll pick that fruit that looks like a peach. Among the 5 spirit items, 2 of them were 1,000-year-old spirit items. The fruits they bore were the peach and the dragon fruit. Without even thinking about it, he set his sights on the peach. This was the Jasper Lake secret realm. Since ancient times, there were too many myths and legends that happened here. Among them, there were myths and legends related to peaches. For example, Monkey steals peach. Chapter 133. There were a total of 601 trainees from the Heaven Level and Earth Level training camps. Although the black-robed woman, Hei-Tu, and the 3 Genten Budokan deacons were there to rescue them, they could not guarantee that they would arrive in time every time. Therefore, more than 10 trainees died in the Jasper Lake secret realm in just one day. However, those who survived had already adapted to the environment after a day of survival training. Especially the Heaven Level training camp trainees who were ranked at the top of the Sky leaderboard. With their A-class strength, they explored more than half of the Jasper Lake secret realm. Mount Tongtian was so majestic. The scene formed by lightning and clouds was like a legend. It could be seen from afar. Soon, some trainees discovered this magical place. And more than one person discovered it. However, unlike Jiang Xi, they did not rashly climb the mountain, because the scene at the lower half of Mount Tongtian and the lightning made them fearful. The trainees in the Heaven Level training camp were divided according to the region. The number of trainees from the 7 major prefectures was about the same. But if they were divided according to the forces, the trainees' backgrounds were complicated. They mainly came from the military of the Wuxia Kingdom, the 4 major college of martial arts, and other official organizations. There were also Genten Budokan, Sukushin Budokan, and other martial arts forces, as well as various hidden families. These trainees from various forces who could enter the Heaven Level and Earth Level training camps were basically the elites of their respective forces. After they discovered Heavenspan Mountain, without prior agreement, they all informed the situation here to the upper echelons or elders of their own factions. It was worth mentioning that when the Genten Budokan first opened the Heaven Level training camp, the first rule was that only people from the Wuxia Kingdom would be accepted. But there was no lack of traitors in any era. Although some trainees wore the identity of the Wuxia Kingdom, they were actually traitors of external forces. For example, Ma Yu, who was killed by Jiang Xi, and Xiao Sheng, who was killed by Han Ningxue with one punch, were all traitors. Now, some of the trainees who discovered Mount Tongtian had similar identities. They were originally tasked with exploring the Jade Lake mystic realm. After discovering the wonders of the sky-piercing mountain, they immediately sent the news to the countries or martial artist factions behind them. All of a sudden, the world's 5 major countries, various martial artist forces, and hidden families heard the news and moved. They all sent out their experts and dispatched the fastest transport planes to the Great Xia Kingdom's Kunlun's Death Valley. Over here, with a goal in mind, Jiang Xi began to look for a suitable opportunity. He had to make sure that his attack would not only be foolproof, but he would also be able to retreat safely. The last time in ruin number 09, he almost didn't manage to escape after snatching food from the wolf's mouth. It was a huge lesson for him. If his life was in danger, he would rather give up than take the risk. The situation this time was a little different from when they fought for the Dragon Mark spiritual fruit in ruin number 09. First of all, there were no beasts here. The remaining 5 undead creatures were still being held back by Fengxian and the others. If he acted fast enough, the possibility of being surrounded was very small. Secondly, his strength was different from before. With the strength of a second-tier A-class warrior, the only one who could threaten him was the white man, Sam. Even so, Jiang Xi still observed his surroundings with the most cautious attitude, thinking of a plan. First, the terrain. When he sneaked over from the peak with the traces of Lingwan Road and Wondrous Rock Mountain, he had a general impression of the mountaintop environment of the sky-piercing mountain. More than half of the sky-piercing mountain's mountaintop was occupied by this endless lake. Around the lake, there were many peaks of different heights. He needed to find a hidden place to enter under such conditions. Otherwise, it would be awkward if he was discovered before he even got close to the spiritual item. Other than the terrain, there was also the timing. He had to choose a time when he could enter and exit. He had to ensure that when he entered, Fengxian and the others would not be able to stop him in time. If the timing was not right, when he appeared, Fengxian and the others would definitely focus their firepower on him. He was not confident that he could take on the 4 of them alone. After hiding in the dark and carefully observing for a while, Jiang Xi quickly found a relatively good place to enter. The vegetable garden in the distance was oval-shaped. Its back was against the peaks of different heights, and its front was the rippling lake. If he took a detour from the back of the peaks, he would be able to reach the open space at the side of the vegetable garden. Then he could enter from the side. Let's do it. Jiang Xi's figure flashed. Under the cover of the fog, he first retreated to the back of the peaks, then took a detour from the back. His footsteps were light and quick. His figure floated and arrived near the chosen location. If he took another step, he would cross a small peak in front of him and appear in front of the vegetable garden. The distance from here to the 1,000-year-old spiritual item he had chosen was about 3,000 meters. Standing here, he could see that Sam, who was the strongest, had already started to suppress the two long-tailed skeletons. Although the long-tailed skeletons had the strength of a second-tier A-class warrior, their ability to fight continuously was very weak. Once their bones were shattered, there was no way for them to recover. As the battle went on, Sam gradually gained the upper hand. Feng Xian's situation was still the best. He was completely suppressing the ape skeleton. It wouldn't take long for the battle to end. Zhongsu and Ta Shi were each dealing with an ape skeleton. Although they were slightly weaker, they were still able to take the initiative in the battle. In total, the four of them would be able to finish off all 5 undead creatures in half an hour at most. Wait for a good opportunity. Jiang Xi maintained his calm. With his speed, he would be able to reach the 1,000-year-old spiritual item with peaches in 1 second at most. Then he would pick the peaches and leave. That would also count as 1 second. If there were any unexpected situations, he would add 1 more second. From start to finish, Jiang Xi only gave himself 3 seconds. Any more and it would be dangerous. It would be easy for him to fall into a situation where he would be surrounded and attacked by Feng Xian and the others. After about 15 minutes, the situation began to tilt. Feng Xian was about to end the battle, and Sam had the absolute advantage. Jiang Xi frowned slightly. This wasn't good. Once Feng Xian and the other 3 gained complete control of the situation, there would be no more chances. However, the 4 of them were too vigilant. Even in their battle state, they still diverted part of their attention to the 5 spiritual items. At this moment, the situation suddenly changed. For some reason, Sam suddenly fell into a passive state. He couldn't suppress the long-tailed skeletons that were transformed from the crypt flame dragons. The 2 long-tailed skeletons immediately went berserk. Their blade-like long tails whistled and swept in all directions. The battle between Feng Xian and the other 2 was affected because of this. Damn it! They cursed at the same time. They were very clear that this was Sam's intention. He wanted to use the undead creatures to finish them off, and take the 5 spiritual items for himself. This son of a bitch. Chapter 134. Feng Xian, Zhongsu, and Ta Shi had been teammates in the wilderness in their early years, and had a tacit understanding with each other. In the face of such a situation, they made similar moves and reduced the intensity of their attacks. The 3 ape skeletons also seemed to have intelligence. Taking advantage of the reduced pressure, they immediately converged with the 2 long-tailed skeletons and huddled together. Then it was a chaotic battle. Fuck. Facing the sudden chaos, Sam also cursed. Conceited as he was, he did not realize that his purpose was too obvious. He did not hide it at all. In the blink of an eye, the situation turned into 4 people facing 5 undead creatures. However, the undead creatures were obviously united. They were not. Therefore, there was a loophole. In less than half a minute, the situation of 4 people facing the spirit item at the same time appeared. Chance. Jiang Xi's eyes lit up. Without any hesitation, he instantly activated the wind shadow step. The mysterious footwork made his whole body like the wind and shadow. In a flash, he arrived in front of the 1,000-year-old spirit item 3 kilometers away. Fuck me. Sam was the first to notice Jiang Xi. Regardless of the undead creature's attacks, he waved his sword and rushed toward Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi. Feng Xian was shocked and angry. He did not have time to think about why Jiang Xi was still alive. Anger and hatred drove him to slash at Jiang Xi. The remaining Zhongsu and Ta Shi did not have their strength. Facing the fierce attacks of the 5 undead creatures, They could not escape at all and could only bitterly hold on. It was expected that he would be discovered. Feng Xian and the others were 5 kilometers away from him. Therefore Jiang Xi did not panic. It's mine. He plucked the attractive peach that exuded spiritual charm. Took less than half a second. There's still a chance. Jiang Xi turned his gaze to the 100-year-old spirit item 400 meters away. Coincidentally, the 100-year-old spirit item bore the dragon mark spirit fruit. It was mature and had 9 golden patterns on the surface. Another one. His figure flashed again. In just 0.01 seconds he arrived in front of the 100-year-old spirit item. His unscrupulous actions made Feng Xian and the others even angrier. Stop! Feng Xian and Sam shouted in unison. Retreat! Jiang Xi simply ignored them. He plucked the dragon mark spirit fruit and turned to leave. At this point he had finally picked the fruit for more than a second. This was still within his expectations. However, something unexpected happened. Sam, who was originally more than 1,000 meters away from him, suddenly increased his speed and caught up with him in the blink of an eye. The broad-bladed greatsword with a sharp sword aura was about to land on his body in the next moment. So fast! Jiang Xi felt a wave of mental pressure and immediately bit his lips. The pain woke him up. With a flip of his hand, his sword swept out horizontally. Clang! The long sword collided with the opponent's broadsword. A huge force burst forth in an instant. Under this force, Riverward's figure was somewhat out of control, flying out backward. Then he used the momentum to increase his speed and dashed down the mountain. What? Sam could not believe it. Although Jiang Xi seemed to be at a disadvantage, that was just a hasty strike. It actually blocked his all-out attack. Didn't that mean that Jiang Xi's strength was on par with his? Close to the first tier of A class. Don't even think about running. Seeing that Jiang Xi continued to run and had no intention of fighting, Sam reacted and quickly chased after him. Behind him, Feng Xian also chased after him with a face full of anger. Jiang Xi was very fast. After successfully reaching A class, his speed had improved significantly. In addition, he used the wind shadow steps at full strength. When he ran down the mountain, he only left behind a series of afterimages. In just a dozen seconds he reached the mountainside of the sky-piercing mountain. Below him was the area with dense lightning. Sam chased after him closely. Encountering someone like Jiang Xi, whose strength was on par with his, but who did not want to fight him and only wanted to escape. There was nothing he could do when he saw Jiang Xi rush into the area where the lightning kept falling without looking back. He could only curse loudly. Earlier, when he came up the mountain, Sam had already experienced the power of the lightning. Although it could not hurt him, it still felt very uncomfortable. Therefore, he only cursed a few times and gave up the chase. He turned around and returned to the lake at the top of the mountain. After all, there were still 3 spirit fruits there. Compared to the 2 spirit fruits in Jiang Xi's hands, the spirit fruits at the top of the mountain were obviously easier to obtain. In just 2 seconds Feng Xian also caught up. He just happened to see Sam return. Sam, where is he? Feng Xian asked anxiously. He ran away. Sam snorted coldly. He did not stop and increased his speed. I'm so angry. Feng Xian looked at the lightning at the bottom of the mountain and roared angrily. You are not his match. Hurry up and help me deal with those skeletons. Sam's voice came from above. Trash. Trash. Feng Xian's expression was somewhat distorted. However, he did not dare to chase after Jiang Xi alone. He had also seen the scene of Jiang Xi and Sam exchanging blows in an instant. That's the strength of a first-tier A rank. How did he do it? It's only been an hour. Feng Xian found it hard to understand. I'm not his match. Feng Xian's heart was filled with resentment and helplessness. In the end, he could only turn around and return to the top of the mountain. No matter what, he had to obtain a spirit fruit. That way, he would have a chance to break through to the spirit nurture stage. A glimmer of opportunity was still an opportunity. Soon, the 2 of them returned to the open space of the vegetable garden at the top of the mountain. At this time, Zhongsu and Ta Shi were still struggling under the siege of the 5 undead creatures. Among the 5 spirit fruits, the 2 that Jiang Xi had plucked had completely withered. Seeing this scene, Sam became even angrier. He rushed over without saying a word. He wanted to vent his anger on the undead creatures. He had already decided that he would take all the fruits of the remaining 3 spirit fruits. Feng Xian and the others would not be able to get a single one, however. He could not reveal this intention yet. He still needed Feng Xian and the others to help him deal with these undead creatures. In fact, he was somewhat envious of Jiang Xi. Because Jiang Xi was very fast, he did not need to fight with these undead creatures. He took advantage of the time when they were restraining the undead creatures to pluck the 2 spirit fruits. Although he was envious, he did not have Jiang Xi's speed and no one to help him restrain the undead creatures. It was very difficult for him to pass through the undead creatures' line of defense. He knew very well that Feng Xian and the other 2 would be lucky if they did not play any tricks. It was impossible to get them to help restrain the undead creatures. Only by dealing with the undead creatures guarding the spirit fruits could they pluck the spirit fruits. Feng Xian was 2 steps slower. After returning, he joined the battle with the undead creatures again. He looked at Zhong Su and Ta Shi expressionlessly. The 3 of them had a tacit understanding and nodded slightly. In the face of the 5 undead creatures, the 4 of them did not fully exert their strength. The battle that could have been finished in half an hour would now take at least an hour. Both sides had their own plans. They were all waiting for the final eruption. Chapter 135. On the other hand, Jiang Xi once again felt the magic of the Tongtian mountain. The lightning bolts that kept falling were all as thick as a thumb, but none of them fell on him. When he found that Feng Xian and Sam did not continue to pursue him, he easily found a nearby cave and hid inside. The cave was very dry. Surprisingly, there were stone tables and stone stools as if someone had lived here many years ago. Jiang Xi did not care about this. He sat down leisurely on the stone stool and took out the 2 spiritual fruits that he had just obtained. His throat moved. He had no choice. The spiritual essence of the peach and the dragon mark spiritual fruit was too tempting, making him have the urge to swallow them. To be safe, I'd better eat the dragon mark spiritual fruit first. This peach is the fruit of a 1,000-year-old spiritual fruit. With the strength of an A-class martial artist's body, if he can't bear it and explodes, there will be no way to explain. Jiang Xi shook his head and put away the peach. Although there was a satellite signal here, he could log into the Xiantian forum. But out of caution, he did not go to the forum to inquire about the origin of the peach. He still understood the principle of treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. A 1,000-year-old spiritual fruit was so rare that if he inquired about it in the forum, the higher-ups of Genten Budokan would definitely know. Things like website backend existed hundreds of years ago. Jiang Xi looked at the dragon mark spiritual fruit in his hand. On the surface of a mature dragon mark spiritual fruit, there would be 9 irregular golden patterns. He thought to himself, according to Feng Xian and the others, the realm above A-class should be the spirit gathering stage. Last time, the dragon mark spiritual fruit with only 1 golden pattern greatly improved my strength. This time, it's a fully mature dragon mark spiritual fruit. Can it help me reach the spirit gathering stage directly? Jiang Xi's heart palpitated. He took a few deep breaths and calmed down before eating the dragon mark spiritual fruit. The last time he ate the unripe dragon mark spiritual fruit, he swallowed it in 1 mouthful in an emergency. He did not taste it at all. This time he had the process of savoring it carefully. It was really crispy and delicious. After eating it, Jiang Xi wiped his mouth, wishing for more. I still want more, however. Before he could savor the taste, the dragon mark spirit fruit in his stomach turned into an extremely rich spiritual qi in the span of a breath. It contained a few times more spirit qi than the A-grade Fey potions. His body began to expand again. However, the situation was still acceptable. Only his muscles and blood vessels showed signs of rupturing. His bones and whatnot had withstood the energy impact this time. The body of an A-class martial artist is indeed powerful. This thought flashed through Jiang Xi's mind. He then focused and used the EXP panel to level up. Level increased by 300 EXP. After chanting in his heart, the spiritual energy in his body rapidly decreased, and his body also showed a small increase in strength. After reaching a class, the improvement process was much slower. Took about 3 seconds each time. Level increased by 300 EXP. Level increased by 3000 EXP. It increased every 3 seconds, and when it reached the 6th time, Jiang Xi frowned. After increasing his level by 3000 EXP, the decrease in spiritual energy in his body was not as obvious as the previous 5 times. Soon, when the improvement process was over, Jiang Xi went through the 7th improvement. Just as he had predicted, the improvement failed. He opened the EXP panel and checked. Level Pulse Opening Level A 2590025900. Cultivation Technique. 9 Elements Heart Technique. Martial Technique. 9 Elements Sword Technique. Combine 300,003,0000. Wind Shadow Step. Combine 400,004,0000. Force Exertion. 10 Experience Points. 119149. I didn't break through. Jiang Xi shook his head gently. The improvement just now had consumed more than half of his spiritual energy. The remaining spiritual energy in his body was not enough to break through the bottleneck from A class to Spirit Nurture. It's a pity that I wasted less than half of the Dragon Mark Spirit Fruit. Because the 9-element Sword Technique and Wind Shadow Step, these 2 advanced martial techniques were also in a bottleneck state. However, he currently had no way to break through the bottleneck. It was not like he could use a large amount of spiritual energy to forcefully break through the bottleneck. Therefore, he could only let the remaining spiritual energy dissipate. Of course, he could also turn this spiritual energy into EXP through cultivation. However, this process would take a long time, and it was obviously not the time now. There were still 3 spiritual items on the mountain peak. Now that his strength had increased again, he could openly compete for them. He might not have the combat power of A class, but he could definitely suppress Sam. Although I didn't succeed in breaking through, with my current state, I should not be far away from A class. The martial artists standing at the first step of the A class were all in the spirit nurturing stage. Jiang Xi's eyes were in high spirits. He stood up and gently clenched his fist. Bang bang, the power that erupted from his body shook the air. It was very powerful. Who was chasing me just now? Now I'm here. Jiang Xi left the cave and gently stepped on the ground. With a boom, his figure appeared 5,000 meters away. His speed had greatly increased. He ran toward the peak of Tongtian Mountain. The process of his improvement did not take long. It was less than 3 minutes. The battle above was definitely not over yet. At the entrance of Jade Lake's secret realm, Kunlun Mountain's Death Valley, the invisible barrier was like an inverted bowl, completely enveloping the 105-kilometer-long and 33-kilometer-wide Death Valley. Endless clouds and mist were churning within the barrier. There were 3 invisible transport planes that landed at different locations around Death Valley at almost the same time. 1 to 2 people came down from each plane with weapons. They directly passed through the barrier of Death Valley and entered Jasper Lake's secret realm. 2 of the martial artists that came down from the plains did not look like they were from Daxia country. However, each of them had a very powerful aura. They were at least A class. At the same time, on the other side of Death Valley, on the cliff of a snowy mountain, Xiantian and White Cloud were still standing there, motionless. They seemed to be waiting for something. White Cloud reminded, "Master, there are more than 10 strong martial artists here." He was doing statistics. Xiantian smiled and said, "No rush. There are still a few forces that have not arrived yet. We have to wait for them. But, Master, according to your plan, we only need to attract a dozen people." "Oh? Did I say that?" I think I did say that. But it's more fun with more people. We can deal with them once and for all. It'll save us the trouble of making a move next time." All right. Pay attention. When the people from the 5 major countries and the main martial artist forces have arrived, we'll go in. White Cloud heard this and finally heaved a sigh of relief. He already knew what his master was planning. However, he felt that the current development was not right. "Don't go overboard, Master." In the next half an hour, more and more people were sent to Death Valley. They were all powerful martial artists. After these people entered Jasper Lake's secret realm through Death Valley, they all went straight to Tongtian Mountain. Chapter 136. After Jiang Xi quietly returned to the mountaintop, he did not reveal any traces. Once again, he hid at the peak beside the vegetable garden. Even if he had become stronger, He could not act recklessly. If he could avoid fighting, he would try his best not to. This was Jiang Xi's style of doing things. Hence, he continued to look for the right opportunity. Observing from here, it could be seen that after the 5 undead creatures joined forces, they became even more difficult to deal with. Feng Xian and Sam were both scheming against each other. In a situation where they were not of one mind, it was almost impossible to quickly deal with the 5 undead creatures. Jiang Xi was not in a hurry. A qualified fisherman was more patient than an osprey. My position is about 6,000 meters away from the remaining 1,000-year-old spiritual item. With my current speed, I only need a little more than a second to reach it. His first target this time was the 1,000-year-old spiritual item that bore fruit similar to the dragon fruit. Just like that, he waited for about 20 minutes. Once again, he saw an excellent opportunity. Without hesitation, he immediately rushed over. However, before he could get close to the 1,000-year-old spiritual item with the dragon fruit, he heard Feng Xian and Sam angrily shout in unison, "We've been waiting for you for a long time." In an instant, the 4 people who were fighting against the undead creatures attacked Jiang Xi together as if they had agreed beforehand, forming an encirclement. They might have disagreements regarding the distribution of spiritual items, but their attitude towards Jiang Xi was the same. After the 2 fays were snatched away by riverward, they were already on guard. It was impossible for them to fall in the same place twice. Blade shadows, sword shadows, and staff shadows bombarded Jiang Xi together. This was especially true for Sam and Feng Xian. Both of them were second-tier A-rank powerhouses, and their attacks were frightening. Haha, good timing. However, Jiang Xi was not afraid at all. Being safe and low-key was fundamental. However, if he really wanted to make a move, he was not afraid at all. Whoosh! The killing shadow sword was unsheathed, and a cold light flashed. At the same time, Jiang Xi's footsteps were light. His body was like the wind, and with a slight turn, he arrived in front of Tashi, who was the weakest. His long sword was suffused with a terrifying sword light, and with a buzzing sound, he slashed out in an instant. 9 elemental swordplay. It was a quick sword enhanced by the extreme speed movement technique. It was even more powerful. In just 0.1 seconds he had swung his sword nearly 100 times. Clang! Clang! Tashi swung his blade with all his might, but he was only a 3rd-tier A-class warrior. His speed was far from Jiang Xi's. After blocking the first 10 or so strikes, he could no longer hold on. He could only barely hold his saber horizontally in front of his chest. Bang bang bang, the remaining dozens of swords almost instantly landed on his body. He was sent flying and exploded in the air. When he landed on the ground, he was already a pile of minced meat. This scene stunned Feng Xian and Zhong Su. Then Feng Xian roared, "Jiang Xi, you deserve to die." A saber slashed towards Jiang Xi. Die, die, die. Zhong Su also went crazy. He swung the stick, the sky full of stick shadows, and smashed toward Jiang Xi. The 2 of them were furious and sorrowful. They had a deep friendship with Tashi, a friendship that had gone through life and death. As early as 30 years ago, the name of the Iron Triangle of the Zhanghai Prefecture had been well known in the martial arts world. Now Tashi was dead. Facing the madness of the 2, Jiang Xi was very calm and collected. The friend of an enemy was also an enemy. He did not show any mercy. If he had to kill, he would kill. "I'll kill the 2 of them together." Jiang Xi's eyes flashed with a cold light. "Just nice, I'll get rid of the threat once and for all." The killer shadow sword and his body merged perfectly. With his body leading the sword, the speed of the sword became faster and faster with the help of the wind shadow step. Clang! Clang! In almost an instant, 2 consecutive strikes repelled Feng Xian and Zhong Su's attacks. Then Jiang Xi followed up with another attack, his long sword stabbing forward once again, but at this moment, a piercing chill attacked from the side behind him. It was Sam's sudden sneak attack, his broad greatsword slashing towards Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi's face turned cold, and he shouted, "You're courting death." Without even looking, he swept his sword horizontally. Boom! When the long sword collided with the greatsword, a huge force exploded, and an invisible shockwave shook the surrounding fog. The situation of the battle changed again. Feng Xian, Zhong Su, and Sam had temporarily joined forces. This young man from the Dexia Kingdom is too sinister. He has been hiding his strength all this time. Sam's face was tense. His reason for attacking was simple. Jiang Xi was too strong. He realized that although his attack power was similar to Jiang Xi's, both of them were close to the first tier of A class. However, in terms of speed, he was much slower than Jiang Xi. If he allowed Jiang Xi to kill Feng Xian and Zhong Su, he would be the only one left. He had no confidence in dealing with Jiang Xi. Then come at me together. Jiang Xi made a classic beckoning gesture. Arrogant. The three of them were furious and attacked at the same time. Jiang Xi laughed loudly, his feet moving in a mysterious footwork. His body was extremely fast and elegant, like the wind and shadow, welcoming their attacks. His long sword quickly blocked the attacks, then he attacked with a fast sword. The 9 elemental sword technique and the wind shadow step were perfectly combined. In one word, fast. In addition, his current realm was at the bottleneck of A class. His strength was outstanding, and combined with his 10-fold strength, the power of each sword was frightening. As long as Feng Xian and the other two were hit by his sword, no matter who it was, even if they did not die, they would be half-crippled. In a situation where his opponents were somewhat afraid, Jiang Xi's attacks were even more like a fish in water. The combined attacks of these three people were like sparring partners for him, allowing him to quickly adapt to his new strength and further increase his combat power. From the time Jiang Xi attacked until now, only 3 seconds had passed. On the other side, after the 5 undead creatures lost their target, they were confused at first. Then they roared and pounced toward Jiang Xi, and the others they attacked indiscriminately. Jiang Xi was still fine. With the flexibility brought by the wind shadow steps, he was able to handle the attacks with ease. On the other hand, Feng Xian and Zhong Su were having a hard time. Not only did they have to deal with Jiang Xi, but they also had to deal with the attacks of the undead creatures. Especially the long-tailed skeletons, whose 2 10-meter-long tails were like giant blades. They swept across the open space and wreaked havoc, restricting their movements. If their movement techniques were not good, they would be easily injured. In this open space that resembled a vegetable garden, the commotion became louder and louder. Some of the surrounding boulders and peaks exploded due to the aftermath of the battle. Jiang Xi felt more and more that while dodging the attacks of the undead creatures, he was also completely suppressing Feng Xian and the others. His sword was like lightning, extremely fast. His body was like a phantom, as elegant as the wind. This feeling was wonderful. How did he become stronger again? How could it be? How could it be? After experiencing a bout of anger, Feng Xian's mind was in a mess. In just a little over an hour, he had witnessed the change in Jiang Xi's strength. In the beginning, under his pursuit, Jiang Xi could only flee pathetically. Now, even if they worked together, they were still not Jiang Xi's match. A feeling of despair grew in his heart. Was this what a genius was like? What should we do? Run. We must run. Before we reach the spirit nurturing stage, we must hide from him. Feng Xian quickly made a decision. He gave Zhong Su a look. Like them, Sam was also thinking about retreating. Sam also knew that under such circumstances, it was impossible to get a big harvest. However, he had more thoughts. He wanted to make sure that he would not return empty-handed from this trip to the Jade Lake's secret realm. Chapter 137. Roar. 2 long-tailed skeletons swept their blade-like tails at Jiang Xi in a crisscross manner. Jiang Xi turned his body and easily dodged the attack. With the strength of the A-class bottleneck, coupled with the wind shadow step and 9 elemental sword art, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the number 1 A-class martial artist. Suddenly, Jiang Xi thrust his sword at an ape skeleton that was pouncing at him. The white man, Sam, retreated without any warning. He turned around and rushed towards the remaining 1,000-year-old spiritual item. Did you ask me for permission? Jiang Xi was amused. This blatant attempt to fish in troubled waters was simply an insult to his intelligence. Immediately after, he changed his target to Sam. He slowed down the frequency of his attacks on Feng Xian and Zhong Su and rapidly thrust his sword at Sam. At the same time, Sam's action of plucking the 1,000-year-old spiritual item's fruit angered the 5 undead creatures guarding the spiritual item. They also surrounded and attacked. Fuck. Sam's face changed. He accelerated towards the 1,000-year-old spiritual item and crossed the distance of 2 to 3 kilometers in a single step. Get lost. Do you think you can touch the things of my great Xia kingdom? Jiang Xi snorted and swung his sword, thrusting it forward with a cold gleam. His speed was faster than Sam's and instantly caught up. It's too late. Sam was unwilling to give up. When he saw the nearest 100-year-old spiritual item, he rushed over with lightning speed. Poochie. He paid the price for his greed. His shoulder was pierced by Jiang Xi. Moreover, it was only 2 to 3 centimeters away from his neck. It was very dangerous. Damn it. What a loss. Sam was infuriated and fled for his life. In the end, he didn't even get a single 100-year-old spiritual item. Consider yourself lucky. Jiang Xi didn't give chase. Sam was determined to escape. Even if he could stop him, it would take some effort. When he turned around, Jiang Xi's expression didn't look good either. Feng Xian and Zhong Su actually took the opportunity to escape. They knew their limits and didn't covet the spiritual item, of course. He didn't dare to do so. He was afraid that he would be hunted down by Jiang Xi if he picked the Fei. These two. Where's the bravery they had earlier? Jiang Xi was a little speechless. So what if she ran away? He wasn't too worried. His current strength was different from before. He had no need to fear Feng Xian at all. If Feng Xian dared to come again, he could probably slap him to death. Jiang Xi's footsteps were light as he was about to pluck the remaining 3 spiritual items. 5 undead creatures rushed over to stop him. Get out of my way. Riverward bellowed as his long sword struck a long-tailed skeleton. Crack, crack, crack. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 sparkling white bones were cut off. The 5 undead creatures became even crazier. Jiang Xi pushed his wind shadow steps to the limit, wanting to get rid of them. A strange scene appeared. The 5 undead creatures seemed to have encountered something terrible. They actually growled at Jiang Xi and fled back into the depths of the fog, disappearing without a trace. Jiang Xi's head was full of question marks. Since he couldn't figure it out, he didn't want to think about it. He had to get the fruits of the 3 spiritual items first. Without any disturbance, Jiang Xi walked over and picked the fruits with ease. 1,000-year-old spiritual item fruit and 200-year-old spiritual item fruits were all in his hands. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, and there was a feeling of space being compressed. A huge palm print that seemed to be condensed from spiritual energy slammed directly at Jiang Xi from afar. What? Jiang Xi was aghast. He didn't even think before running away. Boom, boom, boom. Almost instantly, the huge palm print landed on the place where he was just standing. The mountain rock split open, and a huge pit with a radius of 10 meters appeared there. Jiang Xi only had time to glance at it. His face was full of horror. What kind of attack was this? He had never seen anyone use spiritual energy to attack someone directly. It was so powerful. If he had reacted a little slower, he would have been smashed into a pile of mud. Jiang Xi rushed into the thick fog without looking back. He ran along the lakeside and wanted to go down the mountain from another direction. At this moment, a bearded white man suddenly appeared in the open space. He saw the 5 withered spiritual items. Behind him, there was another person who was much slower than him. It was Sam, who had just been stabbed by Jiang Xi's sword. Lord William. Sam held his left shoulder and bowed. His attitude was very humble. He had already used the A-class spiritual item medicine, and the injury on his left shoulder had stopped. Sam, what happened? William asked in a muffled voice. That kid from the Great Xia Kingdom took the 5 spiritual items. Sam quickly replied. Hide well first. I will chase after him. Before his voice faded, William's figure had already disappeared into the thick fog. Sam's eyes flickered and he sneered. He already had a premonition of Jiang Xi's fate, because the one who made the move was Lord William. In the entire martial arts world of the Dark Shadow Kingdom, there was no one who did not know Lord William's name. Lord William was the new hero of the Dark Shadow Kingdom. He was a true first-tier powerhouse who had surpassed A-class. Sam was a director of the Liberal Alliance, and was also a martial artist of the Dark Shadow Kingdom. He had trained with William for a period of time and had a good relationship with him. This time, William was able to rush over so quickly because of his timely notification. Although he was still a step late and Jiang Xi had taken the spiritual items, Sam believed that with Lord William's strength, killing Jiang Xi was just a matter of waving his hand. After that, he quickly left the place and hid by the lakeside. According to Lord William, this place was going to be chaotic. Chaos, the more chaotic the better. It would be best if the foundation of the Great Xia Kingdom and Jinten Budokan is destroyed. Sam was full of excitement, because there were rumors that the few martial arts powerhouses of the Great Xia Kingdom started to rise after coming out of the Jade Lake's secret realm. Could it be the spirit nurture stage? Although he had escaped far away, Jiang Xi was still shocked. That attack just now was too terrifying. Whoosh whoosh. Gusts of strong wind swept up in the fog behind him. It was caused by someone running at extreme speed. He's catching up. Jiang Xi's face was solemn. A foreigner? Is he also a director of the Liberal Alliance? He saw the appearance of the person clearly. It was a strong white man with a big beard. Fortunately, his speed is only a little faster than mine. As long as I can return to the lower half of the Tongtian mountain, I can use the lightning area there to escape the pursuit. Jiang Xi did not panic. He calmly ran along the lakeside and prepared to go down the mountain from the other side. On the contrary, William was shocked. He realized that Jiang Xi was not much slower than him. A person who had not reached the spirit nurture stage actually showed a speed comparable to the spirit nurture stage. He must be a young genius of the Great Xia Kingdom. I must get rid of him. He was determined to kill him. The two of them ran along the lakeside, chasing each other. Suddenly Jiang Xi's eyes widened. His breathing became hurried, and the rhythm of his footsteps became a little messy. His speed dropped sharply. He saw a green lotus leaf on the surface of the lake in front of him. More than 10 mature lotus heads swayed in the wind against the backdrop of the lotus leaf. Even from far away, he could feel the spiritual aura emitted by the lotus heads. These lotus heads were all 1,000-year-old spiritual items. Chapter 138. There were so many 1,000-year-old spiritual items. If the outside world knew about this, it would definitely make the strong people in the world go crazy. How is this possible? What are the higher-ups of Jinten Budokan doing? Why didn't they send someone to guard this place? Jiang Xi couldn't understand. Boom! Another huge spiritual chi palm print condensed in the air and slapped towards him. The white man had caught up. Damn it! The spiritual items were important, but they weren't as important as his life. Jiang Xi decisively ran forward again. Boom boom boom. The palm print landed behind Jiang Xi, but Jiang Xi left quickly. When William arrived, he suddenly stopped. He had also noticed the lotus pods on the lotus leaves. Oh my God! William exclaimed. He stopped chasing. There were more than 10,000-year-old spiritual items here. Why would he chase after Jiang Xi? Not chasing. Jiang Xi sensed that the movement behind him had disappeared. He realized that the bearded white man must have been attracted by the lotus pods. He was temporarily safe. However, Jiang Xi's mood wasn't much better. His face was tense. 100-year-old spiritual item could nurture an ordinary A-class warrior. Those lotus pods were all 1,000-year-old spiritual items. How many strong people could they nurture? This was a priceless cultivation resource. It could even affect the rise and fall of a country. The more strong people there were, the more resources there would be in this era. Although the Jade Lake secret realm is another space, it is still the territory of the Xia Kingdom. Do foreign warriors want to seize the resources here? Although he couldn't understand why the higher-ups of Jinten Budokan didn't care about these spiritual items, Jiang Xi still decided to call for help. When Fengxian was looking for help to fight for the 5 spiritual items, Jiang Xi already had this plan. However, he didn't expect so many accidents to happen. He used the A-class spiritual item medicine and the 100-year-old spiritual item dragon mark fruit. With the help of the experience panel, his strength increased twice in a short time. In the end, he suppressed Fengxian, Sam, and the others and obtained the 5 phase on his own. Therefore, there was no need to inform the higher-ups of Jinten Budokan, but now that things had developed to this point, there were more than a dozen 1,000-year-old spiritual items. Even a master of spirit nurturing stage has appeared. He had to call the higher-ups of Jinten Budokan over. Otherwise, he would not be able to control the situation alone. Who should I inform? Jiang Xi found that the only Genten Budokan higher-ups he could contact now were Tang He, one of the 4 elders, and the black-robed woman who supervised the survival training. Contact both of them. He didn't have the black-robed woman's specific contact information. The only way was to send an emergency rescue signal and let the black-robed woman come here. However, if he used emergency rescue, it meant that he had failed in this survival training. Jiang Xi shook his head. If he failed, then so be it. Survival training was no longer important to him. Then he used his tactical communications watch to call Tang He. Jiang Xi, aren't you in the survival training? On the other side of the phone, Tang He was a little surprised. Elder Tang, there's an emergency. Do you know the Tongtian Mountain in the Jade Lake Secret Realm? It's a huge mountain covered by lightning and fog. Now, there are foreign martial artists snatching the 1,000-year-old spiritual items here. Jiang Xi spoke very quickly. What? Lightning? Fog? 1,000-year-old spiritual items? Impossible. Jiang Xi, are you sure you're talking about the Tongtian Mountain? Tang He was very surprised. Yes. There's a stone tablet at the foot of the mountain. There's also a big lake at the top of the mountain. There are more than a dozen 1,000-year-old spiritual items growing in it. Okay, I got it. The call ended. Jiang Xi was a little puzzled. Listening to Tang He's words, was the situation of the Tongtian Mountain not like this before? If that's the case, then it makes sense. Otherwise, it would be strange if no one guarded such a precious place. The higher-ups of Genten Budokan wouldn't be so stupid to let others snatch these spiritual items. Outside the Jade Lake Secret Realm, at the edge of the Death Valley. In just half an hour, nearly 20 martial artists came and passed through the Death Valley and entered the Jade Lake Secret Realm. These people were at least A-class in strength. White Cloud asked in an uncertain tone, Master, is it still not enough? There are already more than 30 people in total. 5 of them are at the spirit nurturing stage. Basically, all the experts in the world's martial arts world have come. Xiantian didn't laugh this time. He pondered for a while, frowned and muttered to himself, something doesn't feel right. How can the Jade Lake Secret Realm attract so many people? He also smelled a trace of surprise in the air. It seemed that the development of things was not what he expected. White Cloud thought that it was indeed the case. Master had gone overboard. Ask He-Tu if anything happened inside, Xiantian said in a deep voice. White Cloud was about to contact He-Tu to ask about the situation when his tactical communications watch rang. Tang He's call. Answer it. When the call was connected, Tang He quickly reported the situation. White Cloud looked serious and said to Xiantian, Master, something unexpected happened. Master, an accident indeed happened. Riverward was pursued by Feng Xian and entered the Heavenspan Mountain. According to his description, the environment of the Tongtian Mountain has changed greatly. It has been covered by clouds and lightning. More than 10,000-year-old spiritual plants have suddenly grown in the lake at the top of the mountain. Let He-Tu rush there first. Xiantian also became serious. White Cloud immediately contacted and nodded. Junior sister He-Tu has received Jiang Xi's distress signal and is rushing there. Let's go. Xiantian leaped down from the cliff of the snowy mountain and crossed more than 10 kilometers in the air. He directly fell into the barrier of the Death Valley and entered the Jade Lake Secret Realm. White Cloud did the same and followed Xiantian. In fact, other than Jiang Xi, there were also other Genten Budokan students who discovered the Tongtian Mountain. Like everyone else, the lightning area at the bottom of the Tongtian Mountain made them fearful and did not dare to climb the mountain. As for why they did not inform the higher-ups of the dojo, the reason was simple. Firstly, they did not have the contact information of the higher-ups. Secondly, they subconsciously thought that the mythical scene of the Tongtian Mountain was like this. After all, this was the Jade Lake Secret Realm. Thirdly, they did not reach the top of the Tongtian Mountain and did not know that there were so many spiritual plants there. Therefore, the final result was that other than Jiang Xi, no one thought of reporting the situation. Therefore, the higher-ups of Genten Budokan only knew about the situation now. On the other side, after Jiang Xi reported the situation, he hid in a secluded spot by the lake and quietly observed. Out of caution, he did not approach the area with the lotus heads. His intuition told him that the lake was not safe. However, after reaching the A-class bottleneck, his senses had been greatly enhanced. With his current eyesight, he could roughly see the situation over there even if he was almost 10,000 meters away. He could see that the white man was also very cautious and did not rashly pick those lotus heads. Clearly, he had also realized that this vast lake might be hiding dangers. The white man observed the surroundings for a while and used the simplest method to test the waters, throwing a stone. Splash! 1,000-kilogram rock smashed into the water near the lotus, splashing a large amount of water. The water rippled for a while and returned to calm after a while. It seemed safe and there was nothing hidden in the water. Chapter 139. After throwing a few more big stones and repeatedly confirming that there was no danger, the white brawny man was relieved to pick the lotus, but before he could get close to the lake, suddenly there were 4 people with powerful momentum, whistling from a distance. Spirit Yun stage. Stop! William, stop! For Spirit Yun stage, martial artists shouted in different languages. They came from different countries. One of them was a martial artist from the Xia Empire, and the other 3 were foreign martial artists. When William saw so many strong martial artists of the same realm, his face suddenly changed and his speed increased. He wanted to pick up all the lotus as soon as possible. Boom, boom, boom. The 4 later Spirit Yun stage martial artists each condensed their spirit energy, and powerful attacks directly blasted at William from a distance. In desperation, William could only backhand. Boom! The huge energy collided and exploded over the lake, setting off a strong shock wave. The wind and clouds surged, and the thick fog on the lake dissipated. That is. In the distance, Jiang Xi, who was hiding in the dark, widened his eyes and was shocked. He saw that in the center of the lake where the fog dissipated, there were large lotus leaves, hundreds of lotus plants exuding spiritual charm, swaying in the wind under the lotus leaves. Looking at their spiritual charm, these lotus plants were stronger than the dozens of lotus plants by the lake. They were at least a millennium spiritual object. Jade Lake Secret Realm. Is this lake really the Jade Lake? Otherwise, there was no way to explain the magic of this lake. It actually grew so many millennium-old spiritual objects. 100-year-old spiritual object could cultivate an ordinary A-level martial artist. How many of these could be cultivated? Thinking of this, Jiang Xi smiled bitterly, because the strong martial artists of Genten Budokan had not arrived yet. Now, only one of the 5 Spirit Yun stage martial artists was a martial artist from the Xia Empire. If this goes on, he can only watch these spiritual objects being plundered by these foreign martial artists. In the distance, William and the other 4 Spirit Yun stage martial artists were all excited, tempted. They knew the value of the millennium spiritual objects better than Jiang Xi. The 100-year-old spiritual objects were not very helpful for the cultivation of Spirit Yun stage martial artists. Only the millennium spiritual objects were truly suitable for the cultivation of Spirit Yun stage. Boom! The war broke out in an instant, and the 5 Spirit Gathering stage martial artists immediately fought. They all had their own forces and interests, and none of them were willing to submit to the other. In the world of martial arts, the strong were revered. Whoever won in the end, these spiritual items would belong to them. For a moment, because they were continuously condensing spiritual energy, the surrounding spiritual energy became violent. Strong winds blew, and sand and stones flew. That martial artist from the Great Xia Empire was the first to be targeted and suffered the most attacks. Not only because he came from the Xia Empire, but also because his strength was the strongest among the 5 Spirit Yun stage cultivators. He wielded a long black alloy staff. The shadow of the staff was like a dragon. Facing the attacks of 4 powerhouses of the same level, he barely managed to defend himself. However, if they continued to defend, they would definitely lose. If this continued, they would definitely lose. This made Jiang Xi secretly anxious, and he resisted the urge to make a move. His strength was close to the first stage of the spirit nurturing stage, but it was only close. Under the pursuit of the strong white man, William Jiang Xi confirmed that his speed was not worse than those of the spirit nurturing stage. But in terms of attack, it was much weaker. If he went up now, it would be useless. Soon the situation developed in a bad direction, and the martial artist from the Great Xia Empire who used the staff gradually fell into a decline. Jiang Xi sent the emergency rescue signal again, urging the black-robed woman to come as soon as possible. Then he contacted Tang He again. Tang He seemed to be waiting for Jiang Xi's phone call, and he picked it up immediately. He asked about the current situation. After Jiang Xi finished briefly and quickly, Tang He said, "Our people are already on the way, and they will arrive in 10 minutes at most. I will now send you a list of world-renowned powerhouses. Pay attention to it." Information of well-known powerhouses? When Jiang Xi heard this, he was overjoyed. He didn't have to search blindly when he was chased by the strong white man. He only knew the other party's name, but he didn't know his information. He didn't know any of the 4 later Spirit Yun stage cultivators. After ending the communication, Jiang Xi received a document and opened it. After a rough glance, the powerhouses recorded in this document were more than 300 people. The weakest of them was a class 3rd tier. He also saw the information of Fengxian, Zhongsu, and Tashi. The information was very detailed, directly pointing out that the 3 of them were martial artists from the Liberal Alliance, and Fengxian was one of the directors of the Liberal Alliance. Jiang Xi searched this document and quickly found the information of 5 Spirit Yun stage cultivators in the distance. Lu Rong, founder of the Great Xia Empire's Longxiang Martial Arts School, mid-stage Spirit Yun stage. Sharuk, High Priest of the Peacock Country's Brahmanism, mid-stage Spirit Yun stage. Johansson, Archbishop of the Sacred Alliance, mid-stage Spirit Yun stage. William, leader of the Shadow National Shadow Organization, early-stage Spirit Yun stage. Ivan, leader of the Alpha Star Shell Organization, early-stage Spirit Yun stage. Sure enough, they are all Spirit Yun stage. Jiang Xi let out a long sigh. The pressure was great. After his strength had improved greatly, his confidence had increased greatly. Now seeing this, he understood that he was still far from it. He turned his gaze to the battle in the distance. The 3 major martial arts dojos in the Xia Kingdom, Zhenten Budokan, Sukishan Budokan, and Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo, were the 3 strongest martial arts forces among the people. The first 2 were created by the world's strongest Xian Tian, and the second strongest Li Baibai. The founder of Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo was Lu Rong, who was fighting 1 against 4 in the distance. Lu Rong was indeed the founder of Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo. His strength was very strong. He had a square face and a determined expression. It could be seen that this person's character was very tough. Facing the siege of 4 Spirit Yun stage cultivators, even if he was in a disadvantageous position, he did not back down. The black alloy staff danced wildly like a dragon. The battle was extremely fierce. Whoosh! The wind whistled at this time. A black shadow flew from the bottom of the mountain. "She's here." Jiang Xi's eyes lit up. It was the black-robed woman. He also saw the black-robed woman's information in the information just now. He Tu, one of the 2 bodyguards of the Zhenten Budokan's dojo master. Xian Tian, early-stage Spirit Yun stage. The 5 people who were fighting stopped one after another. Lu Rong flashed and came in front of He Tuesday. "He Tu, your Zhenten Budokan is too careless." Lu Rong frowned. His breath was a little unstable. There was blood at the corner of his mouth. He was injured in the battle just now. "Master arranged it. I didn't expect such an accident to happen." He Tu's voice was cold and helpless. Then she took a step forward and shouted to the 4 foreign martial artists. "This place belongs to my Xia Kingdom. Please leave immediately." The 4 people looked at each other. One of them smiled in broken Mandarin and said, "According to your Xia Kingdom's ancient saying, treasures belong to those who are fated. These spiritual objects were discovered by us first. Naturally, they are fated to be with us." The person who spoke was the Peacock Country's strongest Shaluk. Among the martial artists present except for Lu Rong, he was the strongest. Chapter 140. Then there's nothing to talk about. Let's fight. He Tu pointed his blade at the 4 of them. She was petite, but her aura was not weak at all. "Fight!" Lu Rong waved his staff, indicating his attitude. The 2 of them were going to fight the 4 foreign spirit nurture martial artists together. This old man will join in as well. Just as the battle was about to begin, another person rushed over. The figure stood still. Everyone realized that it was a plain-looking old man. His whole body was emitting a powerful aura, and he was also at the mid-stage of spirit nurture. Elder Huang, why are you here? He Tu and Lu Rong were surprised. Haha, how can this old man be left out of defending against foreign enemies? Huang Kuan laughed loudly. He Tu and Lu Rong were in awe. The old man in front of them was much older than them. Long before the Spirit Qi revival, he was already an iron-blooded general of the Dexia Kingdom's military. During the first Spirit Qi revival, he fell behind on the path of martial arts due to his age and lack of qi and blood. However, he did not give up. In the battles against monsters and foreign enemies, he forced his way through and finally stepped onto the peak of martial arts. Now, although he had retired for many years, he had always been the stabilizing force of the Dexia Kingdom. The four foreign martial artists' faces changed when they saw Huang Kuan. Obviously, they also knew of the old man's reputation. Go! The Peacock Country's expert, Shaluk, roared as he formed a huge fist and blasted it out. They had to make the first move to gain the upper hand. Among the four foreign martial artists, 2 were at the mid-stage of spirit nurture and 2 were at the early stage of spirit nurture. On the Dexia Kingdom's side, only Huang Kuan and Lu Rong were at the mid-stage of spirit nurture. However, the 3 of them attacked crazily without caring about their lives. They were not at a disadvantage against the 4 foreign martial artists. The Dexia martial artists in the martial arts world were famous for being able to fight and having guts. Shaluk, Johansson, and the others were shocked and angry, but there was nothing they could do. However, it was impossible for them to give up on the hundreds of thousand-year-old lotus seed heads in the lake. Because of this, the thousand-year-old spiritual item itself was a priceless treasure. And this lotus seed head was extremely special. There were usually more than 10 lotus seeds in a single lotus seed head. The effect of one lotus seed was definitely comparable to a 100-year-old spiritual item. Based on this calculation, the value of these lotus seed heads was even higher. It could even affect the fate of a nation. After the Spirit Qi revival, the Great Xia Kingdom relied on its ancient heritage to become the strongest country in the world. This made the other countries envious and jealous. They were all trying their best to catch up with the Great Xia Kingdom in terms of martial arts strength. Now, with so many spiritual items in front of them, no one was willing to give up. The martial Tao must be fought. Huge saber shadows, sword shadows, staff shadows, fist prints, and palm prints constantly collided and exploded. The berserk spiritual energy rolled up waves of up to 10 meters high on the surface of the lake. The situation was in a deadlock. Jiang Xi was hiding in the dark. Although he was shocked by the scene, he was relieved at the same time. If this stalemate continued, they would be able to wait for the experts of Genten Budokan to arrive. Unfortunately, this relief only lasted for a minute before the situation changed again. A series of messy footsteps rapidly approached from all directions. After a few breaths, the footsteps became clear. More than 30 figures gathered from all directions. So many. Jiang Xi's heart sank. Because he had just seen the comprehensive information of the experts, he still had a deep impression of them. Therefore, he could recognize the origins of these warriors at a glance. They were all A-class warriors and their strength was at least at the 3rd tier of A-class. These people would be important figures in any country. What was worrying was that more than 20 of these A-class warriors were foreigners. There were only a dozen A-class warriors from the Great Xia Kingdom. In addition, Jiang Xi noticed that Shu Qiqi had also come. Her aura was not inferior to those A-class 3rd-tier warriors. It seemed that she had received some news. Other than her, no other Heaven-level training camp trainees had come among the Heaven-level training camp trainees. Only the top 10 on the Heaven list had A-class combat strength. However, they were mostly at the 4th or 5th tier of A-class. In this situation, they can't help even if they come. Jiang Xi shook his head. After looking around carefully, he saw the figures of Feng Xian, Zhongsu, and Sam in an inconspicuous dark corner of the peak. They had come back, wanting to fish in troubled waters. These 3 still haven't given up. Jiang Xi sneered. At this time, the 4 foreign spirit Yun stage warriors were fighting with Huang Kuan and the others. Then they shouted at the newly arrived A-class warriors in their own language, as if they were giving orders. Grab them! Someone shouted. Immediately, the foreign warriors rushed to the lakeside to pick the lotuses. The spirit Yun stage warriors from both sides were entangled with each other. so they couldn't take care of this side. Stop them! Huang Kuan shouted. Then, he clenched his fist and smashed it toward the Sacred Alliance warrior Johansson. At the same time, more than a dozen A-class warriors from the Great Xia Kingdom also moved to stop the foreign warriors from rushing to the lakeside. The scene became even more chaotic. However, it was obvious that the Great Xia Kingdom was at a disadvantage here. They had lost half of their people. Jiang Xi frowned slightly. Then he relaxed. It seemed that he couldn't keep a low profile anymore. As a citizen of the Great Xia Kingdom, his own interests were important. However, at this time the interests of the country were more important. Shu Qiqi only knew that something big had happened when she received news from her family. Under the request of her family elders, she came to investigate the situation and wait for an opportunity to act. If possible, she had to protect the interests of the Great Xia Kingdom. Among the dozens of A-class warriors from the Great Xia Kingdom, she wasn't the strongest, but she wasn't the weakest either. However, because of her young face, some of the foreign warriors started to focus their attacks on her. Her situation had become very dangerous. Whoosh! 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 3 powerful attacks came at the same time. 2 of the attacks came from the second-tier A-class warriors. Shu Qiqi's expression changed. If she couldn't block it, she would die. She waved her sword and used her strongest move. Dang! She had already tried her best, but she could only block 2 attacks. There was another attack from the second-tier A-class warrior that she couldn't block in time. The sharp blade was about to stab her vital part from the side. Whoosh! At the critical moment, a cool breeze blew past. The cold gleam of the sword flickered and knocked away the blade that was attacking Shu Qiqi. Raka! A short middle-aged man shouted angrily. He was the one who had attacked with the blade. A Japanese? Jiang Xi's expression turned cold. Killing intent burst out from his body. Whoosh! He exerted force with his feet and used his body to lead the sword. The long sword stabbed out like lightning. For testicles! The Japanese man was shocked. He took a step back and tried to dodge. However, his speed was far inferior to Jiang Xi's. The killer shadow sword streaked across the air and pierced his throat, killing him in one blow. After killing the man, Jiang Xi remembered that the Japanese had been destroyed by the sea monsters in the early days of the Spirit Qi revival. This Japanese man should be a wandering warrior. Chapter 141. Jiang Xi's attack shocked all the A-class martial artists present. Whether it was the Xia Empire's martial artists or the foreign martial artists, they all forgot to make a move. Their shocked gazes converged on Jiang Xi's body. Killing a second-tier A-class martial artist with one slash? Who was this young man? Was he at the Spirit Yun stage? However, they couldn't feel the spiritual pressure of a Spirit Yun stage martial artist from Jiang Xi's body. Jiang Xi. Shu Qiqi was the first to react. She was shocked. Her voice was filled with disbelief. 7th sister. Jiang Xi smiled and nodded. When he first entered the heaven-level training camp, Shu Qiqi gave him a lot of help. Then Jiang Xi turned his gaze to all the A-class martial artists present and said coldly, "This place belongs to my Xia Empire. If you take another step forward, don't blame me for being ruthless." Although his current strength wasn't as good as the first-tier Spirit Yun stage martial artists, he had the speed of a Spirit Yun stage martial artist. Dealing with these A-class martial artists was a piece of cake for him, because he had the speed of a Spirit Yun stage martial artist. As soon as he said that, some of the foreign A-class martial artists had the intention to retreat. There are so many of us, why should we be afraid of him? Let's kill him together. Someone suddenly shouted in a foreign language. In the distance, William, who was fighting with Huang Kuan and the others, also shouted, "Kill that kid." Jiang Xi sneered and looked at the back of the foreign martial artists. Feng Xian, Zhong Su and Sam were hiding there. The sentence just now was shouted by Feng Xian. Although he used a foreign language, his voice didn't change. Jiang Xi recognized it immediately. "You're courting death." Without waiting for the foreign martial artist to make a move, Jiang Xi took the lead and used the wind shadow step. His figure flashed as he wanted to pass through the crowd and kill Feng Xian. "Kill him." Feng Xian was a little frightened and quickly shouted again. The foreign martial artists besieged him. "You really think you're at home?" Jiang Xi laughed angrily. Under the siege he stepped lightly and his figure flashed like the wind, perfectly dodging everyone's attacks. Shu Qiqi shouted, "Are you trying to bully us? Let's go." The dozens of Great Xia Kingdom's A-rank martial artists also recovered from their shock and attacked the foreign martial artists. As a result, the pressure on Riverward suddenly decreased, and he began to counterattack, continuously attacking with his sword. The killing shadow sword was as fast as lightning. Pfff. Instantly, 5 A-class martial artists fell to the ground, killed by him. In just 5 seconds. Killing an A-class martial artist in 1 second. With this kind of killing speed, it seemed that these 20 or so foreign martial artists were not enough for him to kill. Haha, good. Kill them all. Huang Kuan laughed heartily. Hei's surprise. She didn't expect that Jiang Xi had become so strong. She was only 1 step away from the spirit gathering stage. Lu rong rong rong, lu rong rong rong. He had heard of Jiang Xi before, but he didn't pay much attention to him. Unlike the 3 of them, the 4 foreign spirit Yun stage martial artists were shocked. Their faces were ugly. Jiang Xi's sudden appearance made their plan to snatch the lotuses fail. William, the spirit Yun stage martial artist Johnson, of the Sacred Alliance gave a signal to the spirit Yun stage martial artist, William. William understood the signal. Among the 4 of them, only William had a chance to escape. The other 3 were entangled by Huang Kuan and the others. On this side, Jiang Xi was in the mood to kill. The only pity was that because of these people, Feng Xian escaped. Kill. The sword flashed so fast that it was hard to block. In the blink of an eye, another 3 people were killed. The remaining foreign grade A martial artists who were still alive were all shocked, and the thought of retreating rose in their hearts. Suddenly, Jiang Xi's hair trembled. His sharp spirit sense told him that there was danger. Be careful. A few anxious shouts sounded at the same time. It was Huang Kuan and the others who warned him. Jiang Xi caught a glimpse of a cold light from the corner of his eyes. Before Huang Kuan and the others finished speaking, a cold light had already appeared beside him. After the cold light, it was the white brawny man, the early spirit Yun stage martial artist, William. Almost instantly Jiang Xi responded. The mysterious footwork of the wind shadow step turned, and the long sword slashed out more than 100 times in an instant. Bang! The cold light hit the body of the killing shadow sword. A strong force, together with the long sword, fell on Jiang Xi's body and exploded in an instant. Boom! Jiang Xi was sent flying like a cannonball, and heavily smashed into a mountain peak 1,000 meters away. The mountain peak, which was dozens of meters high, was torn apart and turned into a pile of rubble. Genius? You're not a genius if you're dead. William sneered. Jiang Xi. Huang Kuan and the others were very anxious, especially Huang Kuan. In his eyes, Jiang Xi was more important than the hundreds of lotuses in the lake. No matter how strong Jiang Xi was, he was still an A-level martial artist. Could he block the attack of an early spirit Yun stage martial artist? A figure jumped up from the rubble and ran wildly into the distance. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Crack! The killing shadow sword made of a level alloy was full of cracks and cracked. Jiang Xi was seriously injured. He's not dead. William was stunned. That was his strongest attack just now. Even a mid-stage spirit Yun stage martial artist might not be able to block it. You can't escape this time. He saw that Jiang Xi's injuries were very serious, and his speed had slowed down a lot. He took a step forward and traversed 7,000 to 8,000 meters. A cold light flashed and he attacked again. If Jiang Xi was hit by him again, he would definitely die. Huang Kuan, Lu Rong and Hei Tu were all crazy. They tried their best to rush over, but they were held back by Shaluk and Johnson. Damn it, I lost big time. Jiang Xi only felt that his internal organs had shifted positions. Fresh blood kept spurting out. It wasn't because he was weak, but because his opponent's methods were too insidious. If he faced the attack head-on, he might have the strength to retaliate, but William's sneak attack caught him off guard and caused him to be seriously injured. It's really dangerous this time. Jiang Xi's face was solemn. Because of his injuries, it was hard for him to use his speed. Behind him, William was getting closer and closer. Go to hell! William shouted excitedly. He was excited because he was about to eliminate the young genius of the Xia Kingdom. Humph! Suddenly, a cold snort echoed on the peak of Mt Tongtian. The fog in the sky instantly dissipated. An extremely strong spiritual pressure covered the entire area. William, who was about to catch up to Jiang Xi, seemed to have been attacked by some invisible force. His face turned pale and he staggered to a stop. While everyone was still in shock, a group of 3 people slowly walked over from afar. 2 men and 1 woman. All of them looked young. There was a man and a woman walking side by side at the front. Their appearance stunned everyone. The young man in black had a sharp face. His eyes were bright and full of vigor, hiding some vicissitudes of life. He emitted a spiritual pressure that made people not dare to look at him directly. The woman in white was very beautiful, but her cold expression made it seem like she wanted to keep people 1,000 miles away. Her powerful aura made people automatically ignore her beautiful appearance. Xiantun, Li Baibai, the world's #1 and #2 martial arts experts. The 2 experts had arrived personally. Chapter 142. Behind Xiantian and Li Baibai, there is a young man in white. Many people know him. Xiantian's guard, White Cloud, is also a powerful spirit-gathering stage martial artist. White Cloud, Black Earth, Genten Budokan's 2 great guards. Both of them have made a name for themselves in the martial arts world. Can you still hold on? Xiantian smiled and walked to the front of Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi was a little confused and nodded subconsciously. Very good, you did a good job. Xiantian smiled and turned to White Cloud. Heal Jiang Xi. Then he walked to the front of William. At this time William did not dare to move at all, and his face was full of horror. Xiantian. William opened his mouth in awkward Mandarin, and his trembling voice had a hint of pleading. I am a very fair person, and I will not bully the weak. You hit my people and I will help him get back at you. It shouldn't be too much, right? Xiantian chuckled. Bear me. William's body was trembling. Smile, I won't kill you. Xiantian smiled. William squeezed out an ugly smile on his face. That's right. Xiantian nodded gently. William breathed a sigh of relief. Boom. Suddenly Xiantian kicked out, and William was directly kicked away. Boom. Boom. William's strong body flew out more than 10 times the speed of sound, and smashed on the top of the mountain, smashing one peak after another. Finally, his whole body was embedded in a peak. A powerful spirit-gathering stage martial artist was actually defeated by Xiantian's kick. Everyone was dumbfounded. You can testify that I didn't kill him. Xiantian shrugged. Li Baibai shook his head gently, somewhat helpless. Jiang Xi was still vomiting blood. But he was shocked by this scene and the blood was stuck in his throat. Cough cough, for some reason, he felt that this legendary dojo master, the world's #1 expert, was somewhat different. Don't be surprised. Master is such a person. White Cloud smiled and handed Jiang Xi a small blue medicine bottle. This is a healing medicine specially made with phase. After drinking it, your injuries will be healed very quickly. Thank you. Jiang Xi took it and drank it without asking any questions, and energy that contained rich vitality quickly circulated throughout his body. The injuries on his body were also recovering rapidly. How magical! Jiang Xi was amazed. Watch carefully. Master is about to make his move again. White Cloud reminded. Jiang Xi hurriedly looked over. On the field, everyone was shocked by Xiantian. No one dared to make a move. Xiantian and Li Baibai walked side by side to the lotus heads by the lakeside. Looking up from this direction, they could still see hundreds of lotus heads in the center of the lake. There are so many 1,000-year-old fays. I was careless. I almost made a mistake. Xiantian patted his forehead. It should be because of the third spirit chi awakening that some changes have occurred here. When we came a few days ago, these were not here yet. Li Baibai said, while the two were chatting. Not far away, Sharuk, Johansson and Ivan, 3 foreign spirit nurturing stage martial artists, were too tense to move. It seemed that no one paid attention to them, but there were 2 extremely strong spiritual pressure that had been enveloping them. At this time, the 3 of them were full of fear and regret. 2 hours ago, they learned about the changes here through the spies planted in the training camp and immediately rushed over. They wanted to take this opportunity to explore the secret of Xiantian and Li Baibai's rise in the Jade Lake's secret realm. Before they came, they were full of confidence. Because of the third spirit chi awakening some time ago, their strength had improved and they had gained a lot. Especially Sharuk of the Peacock Country and Johansson of the Sacred Alliance. These two mid-stage spirit nurturing stage martial artists thought that they had the strength to challenge Xiantian and Li Baibai. But now, when they saw Xiantian and Li Baibai, they realized that they were still far behind. With one kick, William, who was at the early stage spirit nurturing stage, could easily cripple them. Yes, William had been crippled. With the unique spiritual sense of the spirit nurturing stage, they just scanned and knew that William's bones and meridians were shattered. Although he was not dead, he was really crippled. When the three of them were uneasy and became more and more nervous, Xiantian finally turned his gaze to them and chuckled. I said, everything here belongs to my great Xia. You should have no objections, right? Sharuk and others quickly shook their heads. Don't joke, who dares to have objections? Jiang Xi is my man. You should all remember that, right? Sharuk and others hurriedly nodded. Very well, with all of you as witnesses, if anything happens to Jiang Xi in the future, I will take a knife and kill all the young talents of your country. When Xiantian spoke, there was no murderous intent. He revealed a mouthful of big white teeth and smiled brightly. Sharuk and the others shuddered. In the distance, White Cloud smiled and said, Jiang Xi, you don't have to keep a low profile in the future. Jiang Xi nodded gently, his mood a little complicated. The world's strongest person personally supported him. So domineering, I like it. At this time, Xiantian shouted, White Cloud, send the list you compiled to these three friends. List? Everyone was puzzled. Only Sharuk and the other two secretly felt that something was wrong. White Cloud ran over and sent a document to the three of them with his tactical communications watch. When they saw the contents of the document, their expressions changed. Xiantian chuckled and said, the students on the list are all your people. I have helped you train them for so long and spent a lot of resources. It shouldn't be too much for you to pay their tuition fees, right? Sharuk, Johansson, and Ivan came from the Peacock Nation, the Holy Alliance, and Alpha Star, respectively. They all held high positions in their respective countries. Naturally, they had an impression of the spies they had planted in the Genten Budokan training camp. Usually, the spies could hide their identities in the training camp through various measures. This time, in order to convey the information of the changes in the Tongtian mountain, the spies had a high possibility of their identities being exposed due to the lack of confidentiality measures. In the end, Genten Budokan found all the spies. How much? Sharuk asked with an ugly expression. I don't want much. 1,000-year-old Fei or something of equivalent value each. I don't accept payment in installments, Xiantian said with a smile. This was a blatant robbery. Of course, if you don't want to pay, you can be like the one from the Dark Shadow Nation and let me kick you. Then you don't have to pay. This was a blatant threat. How could it be good to be kicked? In the end, the three of them handed over something of equivalent value to the 1,000-year-old Fei with bleeding hearts. Sharuk handed over an old sheepskin scroll full of Sanskrit. Johansson handed over a simple dagger. Ivan was slightly weaker and didn't have as much wealth as the other two. He took out trillions of new moon dollars and handed over his usual weapon. Only then was the matter settled. Xiantian threw these things to White Cloud and asked White Cloud to keep them. Then he shouted to the foreign martial artists, someone from the Dark Shadow Nation, come out. Everyone looked at each other. Who dared to move? Many people looked at Sam, who was hiding in the back. He was an A-rank martial artist from the Dark Shadow Nation and was very famous. Xiu, take your boss away. Xiantian pointed at Sam. Sam's face was dark as he trembled with fear and went over to bring back the crippled William. At this time, Xiantian waved to Sharuk and the others. Okay, you can go now. Remember to take everyone away. Finally, you are welcome to come again, but you must prepare the tuition fees in advance. These foreign martial artists, led by Sharuk, Johansson, and Ivan, quickly went down the mountain with sullen faces. They swore that they would never come to Great Xia again. The people of Great Xia were all bandits. Chapter 143. After Xiantian's deterrence, Only the martial artists from the Xia kingdom were left at the top of Mount Tongtian. Xiantian and Li Baibai first went over to greet Huang Kuan to show their respect. Then, together with Lu Rong, White Cloud, and He Tu, a total of 6 martial artists from the Xia kingdom walked to the lake together to observe the lotus pots. Xiantian, you mean these spiritual plants have just grown in the past few days? Huang Kuan was very surprised. That's right. 5 days ago, Li Baibai and I came here and checked the entire Jade Lake secret realm. We were worried that the third spirit qi revival would cause changes to this place. Xiantian nodded. I just didn't expect that there would still be an oversight. Li Baibai added. The spirit qi revival is indeed magical and mysterious. Lu Rong also sighed. In the distance, Jiang Xi stood together with many A-class martial artists. These people came from various martial artist forces in the Xia kingdom. Some of them were even from reclusive families. They were all very famous in the circle of A-class martial artists. Except for the young Shu Qiqi, everyone else had made a name for themselves. But at this time, everyone greeted Jiang Xi warmly and took the initiative to make friends with him. They had all seen Jiang Xi's strength just now. In the chaotic battle, 8 foreign A-class martial artists, 2 of which even had the strength of the second tier of A-class, were easily killed by Jiang Xi. In other words, if they were to face Jiang Xi, the result might not be any better. Jiang Xi politely exchanged contact information with everyone. He could handle this kind of situation with ease. At the same time, he was also very emotional. This was the world where the strong preyed on the weak. When you were weak, no matter how much you paid, it was difficult to enter the higher circles. But when you were strong, those circles would take the initiative to approach you. If you were in full bloom, a cool breeze would come. That was the principle. Shu Qiqi knew Jiang Xi, so she didn't join in the fun. She could also be considered as a witness to Jiang Xi's growth. In less than a year, Jiang Xi went from a genius trainee in the heaven-level training camp to a top A-class martial artist in the world. He was sought after by many powerhouses. Shu Qiqi sighed in her heart. Ingxue, what kind of monster do you like? She was worried for her cousin Han Ingxue. While everyone was chatting, in the distance Xiantian and the others seemed to have discussed something. Bai shouted from afar, all of you retreat to 10,000 meters away. Everyone retreated 10,000 meters away with doubt. They each found a high peak and stood on it looking over there. Of Ingxian 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 Ingxuan when he Ingxian Ingxian Ing. Ingxian Ingxian Yuan Ingxian Ingxian. Ingxian Ingxianing of Yinggoff Ingxian. Apart from the hundreds of thousand-year-old lotus seed pods in the center of the lake, there were also dozens of them by the lakeside, which were within reach. However, several masters of the spirit formation stage did not rush to make a move. It seems that there should be a big guy sleeping at the bottom of the lake. Even with my spiritual sense, I can only vaguely sense a strong aura, but I can't detect the specific situation. Xiantian's expression became serious. Li Baibai also nodded. Even the 2 of you can't detect it. Huang Kuan and Lu Rong's expressions changed. Xiantian was just serious for a moment, and then he suddenly laughed. Haha, don't be so serious. With the current concentration of spiritual qi, there won't be any existence above the spirit nurturing stage. White Cloud and He Tu's hearts skipped a beat when they saw their master making such a solemn vow. Li Baibai also understood Xiantian very well. She gently touched her forehead helplessly. Huang Kuan and Lu Rong were at a loss. What? You don't believe me? Just now, we agreed that whoever solves the danger at the bottom of the lake will get an extra 10% of the spiritual items. Xiantian smiled, put his hand on the saber handle, and acted as if he was about to make a move. Then let me try first. Lu Rong took a step forward with his staff. Xiantian and Li Baibai tacitly retreated, as if they had been waiting for this sentence. White Cloud and He Tu naturally followed Xiantian's rhythm. Huang Kuan also had no intention to compete. With a smile on his face, he sat calmly on the fishing platform. Because he represented the Great Xia Kingdom's official. No matter how these spiritual items were distributed, the spiritual items he brought back in the end would not be less. Even if he really took less, it didn't matter. He was very open-minded, as long as these spiritual items did not fall into the hands of foreigners. At this moment, Lu Rong took a deep breath, and the spiritual qi around his body began to gather, rolling up bursts of whirlwinds. Immediately after, he jumped up, crossed a few thousand meters in the air, and arrived above the lake. The long staff turned into a huge staff shadow, waved like a dragon, and smashed straight at the lake's surface. "Come out!" Lu Rong shouted. Boom! The lake's surface exploded, setting off huge waves that were dozens of meters high, forming a huge whirlpool. Woo! Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar resounded through heaven and earth. At the same time, the lake's surface shook violently, and the whirlpool became turbulent, creating a strong suction force. All of a sudden, a white shadow swept out from under the water. Upon closer inspection, it was a crystal white bone that was hundreds of meters long. Retreat! Lu Rong was shocked. However, he was in the air and had nowhere to borrow strength, so he couldn't dodge at all. He was instantly swept by the huge white bone. Bang! Accompanied by a huge impact, he was directly sent flying. His figure whistled and disappeared into the horizon. What a huge white bone! Could it be an undead creature? Jiang Xi's breathing stagnated and he was stunned. Even Lu Rong, who was in the mid-stage of spirit nurture, couldn't block a single attack. Furthermore, this was only a white bone. How big was the white bone under the water? Splash! Huge waves slammed against the lake shore, and a rapid whirlpool rose into the sky, forming a waterspout. Under everyone's gaze, a huge white bone figure rushed out of the water, walked on the water and roared at the sky. A strong aura suddenly spread out. This was a skeleton of the tiger tribe, and it was 100 meters tall and 400 meters long. What had sent Lu Rong flying earlier was its 100-meter-long white-bone tiger tail. Although the dozens of Xia Kingdom's A-class martial artists were 10,000 meters away, they felt a strong spiritual pressure that made it hard for them to breathe. Could it be an undead creature transformed from the wind demon white tiger? Jiang Xi felt better, but he was still shocked. All of you retreat further. This time it was the Xian Tian who shouted at them. Everyone flew back another 10,000 meters, and the spiritual pressure from the skeleton of the tiger tribe became much lighter, and they could withstand it. Jiang Xi's endurance was much better than theirs, and he didn't retreat too far. He had been observing the battle situation in the distance. The huge skeleton of the tiger tribe stepped on the water, staring at the people by the lake covetously. At this moment, Li Baibai shouted, "Let me try." She turned into a streak of white light and flew out. The long sword in her hand instantly condensed a layer of pure spiritual energy, and its power was astonishing, and it went straight for the huge skeleton of the tiger tribe. 9 Elements Sword Technique. Her famous ultimate move. The speed of the sword was so fast that even its afterimage couldn't be seen, and it was beyond the speed that ordinary people could catch. Clang! Clang! The skeleton of the tiger tribe's white-bone tiger tail was not slower than Li Baibai, and it was even faster. It blocked all of Li Baibai's fast sword attacks. Whoosh! The white-bone tiger tail made a shocking sound, and it swept toward Li Baibai. It seemed that Li Baibai was about to fall into the same situation as Lu Rong, where she couldn't borrow strength in the air and was hit by the white bone. Suddenly, her footsteps became illusory, and it was as if she was stepping on stairs, and she moved hundreds of meters in the air. Walking in the air? This scene shocked everyone once again. Chapter 144. Is this something a martial artist can do? Jiang Xi couldn't help but ask himself. Walking in the air was a mythical technique. This is Senior Li's unique skill. Even Master can't do it. It is said that when her speed reaches the extreme, she can walk quickly in the air for a short period of time. A gentle voice suddenly sounded out by Jiang Xi's side. Jiang Xi was shocked and looked back. It turned out to be White Cloud. He didn't know when she came to him. It should be that his attention was completely attracted by the battle on the lake, and he relaxed his vigilance, so he didn't notice her. Of course, this was also related to White Cloud being in the Spirit Yun stage. If she didn't actively emit her aura, Jiang Xi wouldn't be able to find her. What White Cloud said surprised Jiang Xi. Walking in the air can be done when one's speed reaches the extreme? Unheard of. You are also good at speed. If you have a chance later, you can ask her for advice. White Cloud chuckled. Thank you for your reminder, Senior White Cloud. Don't be restrained, just call me White Cloud. With the speed of your strength improvement, you should be able to reach the Spirit Yun stage in 1 or 2 years. You don't have to call me senior. Jiang Xi nodded gently. The two turned their eyes to the battle on the lake. On the other side, Li Baibai walked in the air as if she was walking on flat ground. Her speed reached the extreme, and her whole person turned into a white phantom. In addition to Jiang Xi's speed, her fast sword had an additional charm. With the spiritual energy on the sword body, the power was even stronger. The sword shadow fell on the huge body of the tiger tribe skeleton, making a muffled sound that kept echoing on the top of the Tongtian mountain. Roar! The tiger tribe skeleton, which was 100 meters high and nearly 400 meters long, walked on the water with its huge body, roaring at Li Baibai in the air. The two sides fought one after another, and the amazing airwaves that broke out even lowered the water level of the lake on the top of the mountain by several meters. What a fast sword! Even if Jiang Xi's 9-element sword art had been perfected, now that he saw the creator of the 9-element sword art perform it, he also gained a lot of insights. However, after looking at it for a while, Jiang Xi shook his head. If it wasn't for White Cloud's reminder, he might have thought that Li Baibai and the tiger skeleton were evenly matched. But now Jiang Xi knew that the possibility of Li Baibai losing was very high. Although Li Baibai's sword was fast, once he lost the means to borrow power from the air, the speed of his sword could not be maintained. After a while, Li Baibai still failed to subdue the huge tiger skeleton. Suddenly Jiang Xi sensed someone approaching. This time he diverted part of his attention to guard his surroundings. He turned his head and saw that it was the plain-looking old man, Huang Kuan. Jiang Xi had already learned about Huang Kuan and knew that he was a respectable elder. "Greetings, Elder Huang." He greeted respectfully. "There's no need to be so formal. We're just having a casual chat." Huang Kuan smiled and waved his hand. Jiang Xi nodded. He was a little puzzled. He did not know why Huang Kuan was looking for him. "You did well just now. You killed 8 foreign A-rank martial artists and spread the name of Great Xia. This old man is also proud of you." Huang Kuan laughed loudly. "Thank you, Elder Huang, for your praise." Jiang Xi was still puzzled. Huang Kuan smiled and nodded. Then he changed the topic and said solemnly, "Jiang Xi, are you interested in joining our military and becoming a military martial artist?" Jiang Xi was stunned. Last year, the deputy commander of the Northern Mountains Army, Zhao Yan, had made a similar invitation, but he had rejected it. This was because his experience points panel was not suitable for a group environment. It would be easily exposed. Now, facing Huang Kuan's second invitation, Jiang Xi hesitated. If he directly rejected it, it would be very disrespectful. Moreover, he had already joined the Genten Budokan. It would be inappropriate for him to become a military martial artist. Jiang Xi glanced at White Cloud. The second in command of the Genten Budokan was standing next to him. Seeing Jiang Xi's hesitation, Huang Kuan smiled and said, "Let me add, after you join our military, you will be treated differently from ordinary military martial artists. You will be promoted to the rank of Major General. You will not be in the military camp usually. You will only be invited to participate in some important missions. For example, your dojo master Xiantian has the rank of general in our military. You can ask White Cloud about this." Bai Yun nodded and said with a smile, "Senior Huang is right. Jiang Xi, although having an additional identity means having an additional responsibility, the benefits you obtain are also obvious." Jiang Xi thought for a while and did not continue to argue. He immediately agreed. With his current strength, there was no need for him to hide anymore. He had just killed so many people. It was estimated that all the strong martial artists in the world knew about his existence. After Huang Kuan accepted the invitation, he laughed heartily. At this time, the battle situation in the distance suddenly changed. Just as Jiang Xi expected, Li Baibai could not maintain the method of borrowing strength from the air, and was in a disadvantageous position. In the end, he could only wave his sword helplessly to block the white bone tiger's tail and retreat to the lake in a flash. Roar! The gigantic skeleton of the tiger tribe stepped on the surface of the water, its roar shaking the heavens. It was as if it was mocking the fact that no one could fight. Everyone's heart sank. If they could not subdue this monster, they would not be able to pick the lotus pods. "Haha, it's finally my turn." At this time, Xiantian laughed wildly and attacked. He held his saber and jumped lightly, but he did not jump into the air. Instead, he jumped on the water and walked on the water like the tiger tribe skeleton. His aura was like that of an ancient demon. He ran on the water and a huge saber shadow shot out from his saber. The tiger tribe skeleton, which was the wind demon white tiger, roared and spat out a sharp white light, which collided with the saber shadow. Bang! 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 The shockwave from the explosion set off a violent gale. Again, Xian Tian roared and the wind around him swept out like a saber. Roar! The tiger tribe skeleton pounced and swept its tail. Bam! This time, it was at a disadvantage and was sent flying by Xian Tian's saber. Splash! It fell into the water and dozens of its sparkling white bones were also broken. Xian Tian followed up with another attack. He waved his saber and an invisible saber wind broke the water's surface. Whoosh! The tiger skeleton charged out once more, spewing out streaks of astonishing white light from its mouth continuously, creating a huge commotion. However, Xian Tian's saber was too powerful. It was as if it could shake the space and bring great damage to the tiger tribe skeleton. Its body was made up of white bones. After its bones were shattered, it recovered very slowly. If this continued, it would definitely be defeated and die. The tiger tribe skeleton also sensed the fatal danger. Roar! It roared and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth on the mountaintop gathered toward it. A shocking scene appeared. Its huge body was shrinking rapidly. Its body, which was close to 400 meters long, turned into the size of a normal tiger in the blink of an eye. Its sparkling white bone body seemed to have a dazzling luster circulating around it, making it look extraordinary. Its aura also increased by a level because of this. This transformation was really like a demon in the legends. Chapter 145. Several spirit gathering cultivators noticed the change in the tiger skeleton's aura. This is above spirit gathering. Even someone as strong as Li Baibai couldn't keep calm. Just now, Xian Tian said that with the current concentration of spiritual energy, there wouldn't be any existence above spirit gathering. But now this tiger skeleton showed an aura above spirit gathering. Master! White Cloud and Heitu shouted anxiously. They were worried about Xian Tian. Xian Tian is in danger. Huang Kuan said in a serious tone. Was it really so? Zhang Xi was a little confused. It wasn't that he wasn't worried about Xian Tian. He was worried too. But with his sharp spiritual sense, he found that Xian Tian seemed to be calm or rather excited. Humph! When everyone was worried and anxious, Xian Tian snorted angrily. He flipped his saber, and an inexplicable charm spread out from his body and covered the saber. This time he left the water and rose into the air, slashing out with his saber. The inexplicable charm attracted the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, condensing into a 100-meter-long invisible saber, slashing at the tiger skeleton on the water. It was like a legendary technique, terrifying. The moment the saber appeared, everyone was shocked. They could feel an invincible and unstoppable saber intent wreaking havoc in this space. Roar! The tiger skeleton turned into the size of a normal tiger. The white bones all over its body were flowing with spiritual energy, looking very sacred. It roared angrily and rushed into the sky. The white bone tiger tail suddenly swung, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth turned into a long whip, facing Xian Tian's saber intent. Boom! The sky and earth were bright, and the collision produced a dazzling light, making people unable to see what happened. Xian Tian shouted angrily, "Die!" The 100-meter-long saber intent soared again by 10 times, and the spiritual energy went berserk. Woo! Then the tiger skeleton wailed. When the light dissipated, everyone found that there was only Xian Tian standing on the lake with his saber. The imposing tiger skeletons had already disappeared without a trace. All that was left was a sky full of shattered bones that fluttered in the air and scattered in the lake at the top of the mountain, just as the tiger skeleton used its godlike transformation technique and revealed its strength above the spirit vessel realm. It was killed by Xian Tian with a single slash. At the same time, a group of foreign warriors led by Sharuk, Johansson, and Ivan had returned to the barrier at the edge of the Jade Lake's secret realm. As long as they stepped into the clouds, they would be sent out of Kunlun Mountain's Death Valley by the mysterious teleportation power. About to leave, the three spirit gathering stage martial artists are very unwilling to look in the direction of Tongtian Mountain. Where would they find the opportunity to rise to prominence? But they could only watch. Just one Xiantian could easily kill the martial artists of the Great Xia Kingdom. Needless to say, there was also Li Baibai, who was not weak at all, and several other de Xia Empire's Spirit Yun stage martial artists. If Xiantian and the others really wanted to kill them, they definitely wouldn't be able to escape. Could it be God wants us to die? Their hearts were full of despair and powerlessness. Just now they had seen the scene of Zhang Xi killing 8 A-level martial artists in an instant under the siege. Such a genius in the future will definitely be another Xiantian. The Xia Kingdom not only has Xiantian, a strong martial artist at the peak of martial arts, but also a young genius like Zhang Xi. If this continues, these countries and forces can only live under the deterrence of the Xia Kingdom. Damn it! They all wanted to kill Zhang Xi, but they didn't have the courage. No one dared to challenge Xiantian. Just when they were about to turn around and cross the barrier of the Jade Lake Secret Realm, they saw a shocking saber shadow suddenly rise from the depths of the Jade Lake Secret Realm, as if it was going to cut the sky. Everyone was shocked. Especially Sharuk and the other two. They knew that this was Xiantian's saber. With such power, they were afraid that one slash could kill all three of them together. Forget it, forget it. The three of them stepped over the barrier with a bitter face. The last shred of resistance disappeared without a trace. However, they had retreated in fear, so they missed another shocking scene. Oh! The shattered white bones quickly sank into the lake. Master has touched the threshold. White Cloud exclaimed, his voice full of envy. Threshold? Zhang Xi was a little surprised. The threshold above spirit nurturing. Huang Kuan explained to Zhang Xi. Hearing this, Zhang Xi was even more surprised. Xiantian could kill a tiger skeleton above spirit nurturing with one slash, and he was still at spirit nurturing, killing an enemy above his level. No wonder he was the world's strongest martial artist. While everyone was exclaiming, suddenly the wind and clouds changed. Boom! Thunder roared, and the dark clouds covering the sky quickly dissipated. However, there was no sunlight. Everyone looked up at the sky, and their expressions changed. Even Xiantian's expression changed greatly. Shocking! After the dark clouds dissipated, there was a reflection of a lake in the sky. It looked 100 times bigger than the lake at the top of Mount Tongtian. It was vast and boundless. The lake was filled with thick mist, hazy like a celestial lake in heaven. What was even more shocking was that within the mist, there seemed to be a sky-reaching pavilion standing on the surface of the lake. Is that the Jade Lake? This thought flashed through everyone's mind. At this time, everyone was looking up at the sky, so no one noticed the change in Zhang Xi's expression. Because Zhang Xi found that after the lake appeared in the sky, the inexplicable attraction that had been lingering in his heart suddenly became stronger. Previously, when he was chased by Feng Xian, it was because of the inexplicable attraction that he came to Mount Tongtian. Then, on the top of the mountain, he found the peak with the traces of Ling Wan Road and Wonderful Stone Mountain. However, he always felt that the inexplicable attraction did not come from the peak. However, on the top of the mountain, he could not find any other source of attraction. No wonder I couldn't find it. It's in the sky. Zhang Xi came to a realization. Do you want to go to the sky? How to go up? With the ladder? Zhang Xi shook his head. Don't be ridiculous. The reflection of the lake seemed to be in another world soon. Xiantian gave him a demonstration. Xiantian stepped on the surface of the water and suddenly borrowed the force, splashing waves dozens of meters high, and leaping thousands of meters. However, in the end he fell back to the water. Obviously, this method could not go up. Xiantian returned to the lake with a frown, but his eyes were fixed on the lake in the sky. Li Baibai and the others hurriedly went up to him. Zhang Xi thought for a moment and followed. What did you find? Li Baibai asked. Under everyone's questioning gaze, Xiantian shook his head. I can't figure it out yet. I suspect it's another secret realm. Another secret realm? Seeing everyone's surprise, Xiantian explained with a smile. I once read in an ancient book that in ancient times, there were powerful people who could open up space and build small worlds, which are the so-called Grotto Heaven's secret realms. Presumably, with such strength, It would be easy for them to open up another world in the original Grotto Heaven's secret realm. In that case, the lake in the sky is a real world. How do we go up? Lu Rong raised the question that everyone was concerned about. Just now, he was swept away by the tiger skeleton's tail and rushed back from the foot of the mountain. Chapter 146. Under everyone's expectant gazes, Xiantian crossed his arms and pondered for a while. After a while, he suddenly said, "Use a ladder?" Everyone was silent. "Boss, are you serious? This is the answer you came up with after thinking for so long?" "Haha, I'm just kidding. I don't know how to go up, but the way up must be at the top of this mountain." Xiantian laughed. However, Zhang Xi noticed that Xiantian seemed to be joking, but inadvertently, he glanced at him meaningfully. This action caused Riverward to be alarmed. Could it be that Xiantian noticed his abnormality and knew about the inexplicable attraction? He looked carefully and found that Xiantian was acting normal. He was joking with everyone. Did I see wrongly? The others did not notice Xiantian's action because they were focused on finding the way up. Next, everyone, including the dozen or so A-class martial artists, searched the mountaintop together. Unfortunately, after looking around for a while, he still couldn't find the path. Jiang Xi thought of the 100-meter-tall mountain peak. However, Xiantian and Li Baibai also thought of it. The two of them went there and studied for a long time, but they did not find anything. In the end, everyone gathered at the lake at the top of the mountain. Only this lake has not been found. It should be down there. Xiantian looked at the rippling water and guessed. However, the Tongtian mountain had a radius of more than 50 kilometers. This lake took up 70% of the area. It was so big that one could not see the end of it. It was very difficult to search such a big lake in a short time with only manpower. After all, the situation underwater was different from the situation on land. Leave it to me. Our military has professional underwater detection equipment. Huang Kuan smiled. Okay. With Elder Huang in charge, everyone can rest assured. Xiantian laughed. However, even so, he still asked He Tu to help in the end. Huang Kuan did not object. The Jade Lake's secret realm had always been guarded by Jinten Budokan. It was reasonable for He Tu to participate in the search. After this matter was settled, everyone plucked the lotus heads from the lake at the top of the mountain. He had obtained a total of 145 1,000-year-old lotus pods. The various forces of the Great Xia Kingdom that were present would distribute the spoils according to the ratio that was agreed upon beforehand. The government of the Xia Kingdom and Jinten Budokan received the most. Next were Tsukushin Budokan and Longxiang Martial Arts School. As for the A-class martial artists, they had also contributed a lot in the battle against the foreign enemies, and each of them had been given at least one lotus pod. No one was dissatisfied with the happy ending. A single 1,000-year spiritual item was enough to raise the strength of their faction to a whole new level. Of course, some of them were also very interested in the lake world in the sky. However, they were also self-aware. They knew that this kind of opportunity belonged to the few spirit nourishment stage cultivators present. A-class warriors were not qualified to compete for it. The series of battles that occurred around the Heavenspan mountain also came to an end here. Apart from He Tu, who was requested by the Xiantian to stay behind to guard the sky-piercing mountain, everyone else had to leave. As the dark clouds at the top of the mountain had dispersed, the fog that shrouded the upper half of the sky-piercing mountain and the lower half of the lightning had all disappeared. Therefore, when going down the mountain, Zhang Xi did not have to worry that others would discover the strange scene where the lightning could not hit him. After going down the mountain, he watched as everyone left with their respective spoils. Zhang Xi and Shu Qiqi were a little confused and only then reacted. As the students of the heaven-level training camp, they seemed to be undergoing survival training. The two of you should leave together. This kind of training is no longer useful to you. At this time, White Cloud called for them to leave together. Soon, everyone returned to the barrier at the edge of the Jade Pool's secret realm. They stepped into the clouds and were sent out of the Death Valley of Kuan Mountain by the teleportation force. After coming out, Zhang Xi stood at the edge of the Death Valley and turned around to take a look. An inexplicable attraction came from the mysterious lake in the sky. His intuition told him that he would come here again soon. After that, they took the transport plane with White Cloud and returned to the camp town. As for the other training camp students, they were still undergoing survival training. On the transport plane, no one said anything. Jiang Xi also closed his eyes to rest, but in his heart, he was reviewing this experience. Only by being good at summarizing can one grow faster. Genten Budokan had guarded the Jade Pool secret realm for many years, and there had never been such a large-scale infiltration of foreign enemies. This time it seemed that someone deliberately let go of the guards and let those with bad intentions in. Looking at the whole thing, Jiang Xi felt that this was like a successful and failed fishing operation. The success was that the martial artists of the Great Xia Empire deterred those foreign martial artists who had become restless because of the third recovery of spiritual energy. The failure was that before the operation, they did not make sufficient preparations for possible accidents. Judging from the reactions of Xian Tian and Li Baibai, they had also checked the situation of the Jade Pool secret realm in advance to ensure that there would be no accidents. But they did not expect the recovery of spiritual energy to be so magical that the Tongtian mountain would change so much because of it. In just a few days, so many thousand-year-old spiritual creatures had grown. As a result, the number of fish caught exceeded the expected number. Thinking of this, Jiang Xi chuckled in his heart. He seemed to be an accident too. If he had not been chased by Feng Xian, discovered these changes in the Tongtian mountain, and promptly notified the martial arts school's higher-ups, these thousand-year-old spiritual creatures would have been obtained by the foreign martial artists. 100 years, 1,000 years was just an exaggerated description of spiritual creatures. It did not mean that the spiritual creatures had really grown for 100 years or 1,000 years. It was undeniable that the effect of spiritual creatures was very powerful. Under normal circumstances, a 100-year-old spiritual creature could cultivate an ordinary A-rank martial artist. And 1,000-year-old spiritual creatures were important cultivation resources for spirit accumulation stage martial artists to improve their strength. It could be imagined that if so many 1,000-year-old spiritual creatures fell into the hands of foreign martial artists, it would definitely cause a huge blow to the Great Xia Empire. It would even affect the Great Xia Empire's leading position in this era. Fortunately, Xian Tian and Li Baibai were strong enough to complete the goal of deterring foreign martial artists. In addition, there was another unexpected accident, which was the appearance of the Sky Lake. This kind of accident was not something that could be controlled by humans, so it could be said that it was not an accident. In conclusion, there were still some things that Jiang Xi did not understand. For example, before everyone discovered the changes in the Tongtian mountain, what was the bait that Xian Tian and the others used to fish? But in general, he had roughly figured out everything and felt that his whole person was much more relaxed. Jiang Xi warned himself in his heart that even if his strength had become stronger, he still had to act cautiously. Before doing anything, he had to try his best to be fully prepared and consider the possible accidents that might happen. Otherwise, it would be like this fishing operation, where powerful experts like Xian Tian and Li Baibai almost failed. In the end, putting aside these successes and failures, this battle of the Tongtian mountain made Jiang Xi realize one thing. The Great Xia Empire was as strong as ever. Chapter 147. September 8, 93rd year of the New Moon Era. This year's survival training in the training camp had ended. When they set off, a total of 601 trainees had gone to the Heaven Level and Earth Level training camps. In the end, less than 500 people returned. They had lost nearly 20% of their trainees. This data gave the instructors of the training camp a fright. There had never been such a tragic record. After some investigation, they found out that more than 50 trainees with the identity of secret agents had been expelled from the training camp. But even so, the mortality rate had reached 10%. It was twice as high as the previous years. They quickly found the reason from the trainees' experiences. It was because the undead creatures in the Jade Lake secret realm had become a lot stronger after the third awakening of spiritual qi. Many trainees had lost their lives because of it. The instructors had the responsibility of training the trainees. Therefore, they unanimously decided to increase the requirements for the trainees in the future training. Because of this, the camp town set off another wave of training craze. The strength of the trainees increased rapidly because of this. And all this had nothing to do with Jiang Xi. In the number 3 Shanshuiyuan manner, Jiang Xi was asking his teacher, Yu Lin, about some questions regarding the swift sword. He didn't become arrogant just because he had become stronger. Jiang Xi knew the importance of brainstorming, and Yu Lin had a unique understanding of the swift sword. Just the rhythm of the swift sword had benefited him a lot. The two of them practiced as usual, one teaching and the other learning, until 8 o'clock in the evening. In the end, Yu Lin smiled and said, Jiang Xi, as your teacher, I have nothing to teach you. Teacher, you must be joking. I think you are better than Li Bai and Senior Bai when it comes to the details of the swift sword. Jiang Xi shook his head. You can't say this carelessly. Yu Lin smiled helplessly. His strength was in the third tier of A-class. In the circle of A-class fighters he had a lot of connections. In the past few days, he had received many congratulations from his old friends. Because he was Jiang Xi's teacher, Jiang Xi's shocking actions in the Jade Lake secret realm had spread throughout the martial arts world. Under the encirclement, he had easily killed 8 A-class warriors. 2 of them were even second-tier A-class warriors. When the students were successful, the teachers would also feel proud. The only thing that Yu Lin felt was a pity was that he couldn't witness Jiang Xi's massacre with his own eyes. On the day of the Heavenspan Mountain battle, he happened to not be in the training camp. He went somewhere else, so he did not make it in time. I don't think you'll be staying in the training camp for long. Have you thought about where you want to go? Yu Lin asked again. Jiang Xi smiled. Let's go home. Now that his martial artist level has reached the A-level bottleneck, the next step is to consider how to break through the bottleneck and become a spirit vessel stage martial artist. The resources of the heaven-level training camp were only used to nurture A-class fighters. It was no longer of much help to him, so he could apply for graduation. In addition, he was a Jinten Budokan warrior, so after graduating from the training camp, he had 2 choices: stay in the Jinten Budokan headquarters or work in the branch library. If it were anyone else, they would definitely choose to stay in the headquarters because it was easier to get good cultivation resources there. In comparison, it would be more difficult to get good cultivation resources in the branches of the prefectural cities. However, these were not a problem for Jiang Xi, because he had the experience points panel. Therefore, he decided to go back to the branch library in Paksun province. Late at night, the 2 moons were hanging in the sky. Jiang Xi sat cross-legged on the balcony of Villa 101 in Tianyuan district, running the 9 elements cultivation method and cultivating qi. Because the data on the panel was in a bottleneck state, he could not carry out daily improvement at present. He could only use all his time to cultivate the 9 elements cultivation method. Cultivation also allowed him to gain experience points, and experience points were the foundation. Now, he could gain 27 experience points for every cycle of cultivation. It used to be 9 experience points. In other words, after the 3rd awakening of qi, the concentration of heaven and earth qi was 3 times higher than before. Level Pulse Opening Level A 259002-5900. Cultivation Method. 9 Elements Cultivation Method Martial Technique, 9 Elements Swordsmanship, Combine 300-003-0000, Wind Shadow Step, Combine 400-004-0000, Force Exertion, 10 Experience Points, 124685. It had been 6 days since he returned from the Jade Lake Secret Realm. Judging from the data on the experience points panel, his biggest gain in the Jade Lake Secret Realm this time was that his martial artist level had reached the A-level bottleneck. He was only 1 step away from advancing to the spirit nurturing stage. In addition to this, his experience points had increased by more than 3,000 points. It was a little less, mainly because he did not hunt those undead creatures this time. If he had not killed 9 A-level martial artists, he might have gained much less experience points this time. Why 9? Jiang Xi would not forget the first A-level martial artist he killed, Mayu. Apart from the experience points, the other gains this time were not small. The main ones were the 5 spiritual fruits. 2,000-year-old spiritual fruits, the peach and the dragon fruit. 300-year-old spiritual fruits. He had already used 1 dragon mark spirit fruit in the Tongtian mountain, leaving 2 fruits that looked similar to apricots. In addition, Jiang Xi was still thinking about those lotus pods. No matter what, he had contributed to the organization in the Battle of the Tongtian Mountain. There should be a reward, right? It had been almost a week. and he had not received a reward yet. When it was close to midnight, his tactical communications watch vibrated. It's the middle of the night. Don't tell me they are pulling me to watch a horror movie again. Jiang Xi's face was a little dark, thinking that it was a call from Jiang Dudu. After clicking on it, he found that it was not. White Cloud's gentle voice came from the other side of the phone. Jiang Xi, come to the Tianyuan Pavilion second floor. Jiang Xi was shocked, and he thought to himself, it's finally here. He did not ask much and went straight to the Tianyuan Pavilion. At this time the Tianyuan Pavilion was empty, and there was no one in sight when he came to the second floor. He saw White Cloud standing at the door of the room on Lingwan Road, waiting. White Cloud smiled at him. Go in, master is waiting for you inside. Thank you. Jiang Xi nodded and walked in. The black door made of A-grade alloy slowly closed. The huge room was empty, and there was only a mountain rock about 3 meters tall. It was Lingwan Road. Xian Tian stood in front of Lingwan Road with his hands behind his back, quietly observing. You're here? Xian Tian was very easygoing. Greetings, Pavilion Master. Jiang Xi bowed respectfully. Haha, don't be restrained. Jiang Xi just smiled. How could he not be restrained when facing the world's #1 martial arts expert? This kind of one-on-one meeting was completely different from the many people at the Tongtian Mountain. Xian Tian shook his head with a smile and did not insist. He continued, you should be able to guess the origin of Lingwan Road, right? I heard from Deacon Lu Kuei that it was brought back from a mysterious place by the Pavilion Master. This mysterious place should be the Jade Pool Secret Realm. Jiang Xi nodded. That's right, but the process of bringing it back is a little different from the rumors. I used a saber to cut it down from the Tongtian Mountain. Xian Tian's tone was a little boastful. Jiang Xi smiled and did not say anything. He had confirmed this guess when he found the 100-meter tall peak on the Tongtian Mountain.